My name is Shravan Prabhu and I work as a program associate at CW and will also be the coordinator for the GHCF and South Asia Hub. A very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of CW and all our partners, and thank you for joining us for this technical session on the launch of the GHIN South Asia Hub. Today's convening is the second of two engagements we are hosting as part of this launch, the first one being on 19th. And it's great to see such a mix of practitioners, researchers, and policymakers in the room today. As we all are experiencing, extreme heat is becoming more frequent, intense, and more complex, especially in South Asia, which deals with not only the dry heat but the humid heat issue. What makes this challenging particularly difficult is that it cuts across sectors from health and labor to urban planning and disaster management. This makes it essential for us to move beyond isolated efforts and build stronger regional collaboration grounded in science and informed by on-ground realities. Today's session is a step in that direction. To briefly inform about the South Asia Hub of the Global Heat Health Information Network will be hosted by CW along with our partners NRDC, Sustainable Futures Collaborative, UNESCAP, and BRAC James P. Grant School of Public Health. It will aim to serve as a regional platform for knowledge exchange, policy innovation, and capacity building on heat and health. This session is designed to give us a quick overview of the global network insights from other regional hubs and a closer look at the vision and priorities for our South Asia Hub. To begin the session, I would like to invite Ms. Shalu Agarwal, Director of Programs at CW, to deliver the welcome remarks. Shalu is Director Program of CW, where as part of senior leadership, she develops and articulates CW's vision and strategy to impact sustainable development at scale. She oversees and monitors the research programs under CW's 15 verticals and supports the optimization of processes and people. Shalu, over to you.
Very good morning to everyone and for joining us in time for this session. Well, we are here to... Sorry, logistics. Well, let me say, we are a tropical country. And as a tropical country, India and Indians have been traditionally pretty comfortable with, higher ranges of heat. And this can be, this is reflected in the wider thermal comfort ranges that are observed in India as compared to many other countries and international standards even. And this is, mainly on account of the way we have traditionally built our cities, our culture, our culinary practices, and of course the environment that we have adapted to. And the same holds true for the wider South Asian region. But unfortunately, our relationship with heat is now changing. And it's because humans have managed to change the climate at the global level, which is leading to rising temperatures, and as well as the microclimate, which means that we can no more adapt easily to the rising heat stresses. And therefore, just this year, the government of India has recommended that extreme heat be included in the list of nationally notified disasters. At CEW, our first study on heat and health actually goes back to 2015, which I was also surprised to find. And there we predicted how heat-related mortalities would rise in the 52 million plus cities across many states in India. For the next 5-7 years, our researchers at CW continue to do deep research to understand how is India exposed to various kinds of climate risk, how well prepared or not we are to them. We investigated and discovered how rapidly changing climate extremes affecting different parts of the country at the state level, at the district level, and how in many districts in India we are even seeing swapping trends between floods and droughts. We studied how extreme heat is impacting us at the district level, and we also studied how monsoon trends are changing at the sub-district level. These are all very interlinked issues. But it was really in 2023 when Mr. Jata Sonik invited us to work with the government of Maharashtra that we really got a chance to translate a lot of our research into practice. And under her guidance, we co-developed a heat action plan for Thane, where we built on the good work that NRDC has been doing for long in this space and brought in layers of how a heat cum humidity index, how ward level assessment of heat, and layered it with localized thresholds for early warning systems. And it was not just a plan that we developed there, because of course there was an intention to act within the government as well. So it was complemented by setting up of a task force which was headed by the municipal commissioner of the city, which was meeting frequently to track the preparedness level for both response and also thinking about what else can be built to protect people. We did surveys in high-risk wards to understand how communities are typically adapting to heat, and we also trained health workers in the city. That experience gave us a lot of lessons, learnings, and confidence to take that work to beyond Thane. And we're happy to share that with support from NDMA and many SDMAs across 7 states in India, we have co-developed 140 plus heat action plans for cities and districts so far. And our hope is to continue taking this work to more and more cities, because this is a pan-India problem. In this long journey, we are immensely grateful to many, many partners who have backed us and supported us and guided us, starting with India Climate Collaborator, Rohini Nilikarin Philanthropies, Spectrum Impact, HSBC, now HT Parekh Foundation, and we are very also grateful to welcome Trust for supporting the heat and health hubs. And I must acknowledge that many in this room, and especially our consortium partners, have been steadfast in working on these issues for many years, and advancing a collective understanding on how heat is going to affect us. There are many unanswered questions, and how can we possibly develop strategies to protect cities, communities, and economies against the rising adverse impacts that are going to come to us. We can't wish them away. And building on this momentum, the collective wisdom, and of course support from NTMA, GHHIM, WHO, and many others that we would like to call as partners, we are confident that we'll be able to take lessons from India to other countries in the region and foster regional collaboration on a shared issue that affects everyone. So we at CW are absolutely delighted to be hosting this hub along with our partners in NRDC, SFC, UNSCAP, BRAC School of Public Health, and we look forward to your support and inputs in this long journey. And thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Ms. Agarwal. To set the global context, I would now like to invite Ms. Alejandro from the GHHN Global team for your remarks and a brief overview of the network.
Thank you. For us, it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. Special thanks to NRDC for making the time and the space to launch this together with you all. I'll be quick. So the context has changed. The level of understanding that we have nowadays on heat, changing climate, and which are the patterns and the intricacies of how the hotter extremes are affecting society were not so clear 10 years ago. In 2016, a community of practitioners from diverse sectors, but mostly the meteorological services, ministries of health, UN agencies, were seeing each other in different forums, and there was a conversation like what's going on with the climate, with extreme heat, and how is that going to affect livelihoods and well-being. We didn't have as much understanding as we do have now. There wasn't much evidence, and the global conversation and then the regional conversations were not that mature. So, and the world had witnessed some black swans, the Chicago 1995, Europe 2003, Europe 2010, and some others also in this region, but there was not a collective global conversation on what's going on with extreme heat. So this community came together first in 2016, and then a forum was organized in 2018, because there was understanding that a platform, a space for these conversations were needed. So it was spearheaded by WHO, the World Health Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, NOAA, and some other partners, and several governments that were witnessing this with quite preoccupation and concern, and were really interested in being part of the conversation and trying to understand what other countries were doing, how they were preparing, what early warning systems for heat they had, and what could be learned from that and then taken to their own country. So that's when GHCF was launched. Nowadays, GHCF has a mission and a vision and three very clear and simple but profound objectives. We aim to connect people and institutions and bring them to a room around the table, like pretty much like what's going on here. And then two additional objectives, one on the acceleration of knowledge, and the third one on using that knowledge to inform policy action. Sort of in a nutshell, what we aim to do is to make information policy relevant and to make policies evidence informed. There was a very good level of understanding that while these global platforms for conversation were relevant and needed, action happens locally and even hyper-locally. So decentralization was needed. So we understood regional hubs to sort of lead regional to national conversations were needed, because it's very different what happens in India, in the region, to what happens in South America or in Southeast Asia or in West Africa. So a plan was set to launch regional hubs that could drive these regional, national and local conversations forward, doing a convening process but with local and regional actors. And for the last 10 years, the network, through its part and with its partners, we've been working together to have a better understanding of how heat risks could be reduced and addressed. Thanks to the joint work and collaboration with so many trusted partners that have robust science and that are reputable institutions, GHCF has become a trusted voice on the topic at the global level. We've been engaging with the UN system, with international organizations. We helped draft the United Nations Secretary General call to action because of that position, again, thanks to the work with partners. And the way we work with institutions is through partnerships. So we have a process that we are trying to make more simple, to partner and join GHCF so that you can bring your own work to that global platforms and that others can learn from the work you're doing and vice versa. So that has contributed to this agile and responsive cooperation, and that's sort of what we try to embed and push forward in the hubs. So this is pretty much our aim, our will and our mission. We aim to work through the hubs, with the hubs and with the partners to make sure that action follows information, and that, as it was mentioned yesterday on several occasions, all these processes that could sound abstract, at the end of the day, really have an impact on the common people. So, slide disappeared, but I think it was my last one. So the next one would say thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. As we saw in the PPT, the first regional hub of GHCF was in Southeast Asia, and it's always useful to learn from the ongoing work in other regions. I would now like to invite Dr. Jason Lee, who's the chair of the GIN Southeast Asia Hub, to share his insights from the experience. To briefly introduce Dr. Lee co-leads the Human Potential Translation Research Program and directs the Heat Resilience and Performance Center, and he leads the GIN Southeast Asia Hub to scale efforts in managing the complex heat health risk in Southeast Asia. Over to you, Dr.
Good morning. It's me again. So for those of you who attended the talk yesterday, this is a continuation. This morning I gave a quick education to a couple, and she commented that you are a good teacher, but I will improve that by awarding a prize for those who pay attention to my short presentation, because a good teacher always gives prizes. Today I wore a batik. This is from Malaysia. Yesterday the one is from Indonesia. So I remind myself I'm not speaking on behalf of just small little dots called Singapore, but to take leadership for the region. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't expect that, but thank you, Kada. So I asked that today it might feel like it's very ceremonial, but I just want to remind Vishwas and team, henceforth, today you take on the mandates with huge responsibilities. There will be many sleepless nights, but this is a privilege. Yeah, leadership is both a privilege and very hard work. But please, thank you. Clap again. Yeah, but please, as you undertake this work, right, it's a lot of work, but please maintain the capacity by exercising more. Yeah, often we say no time how to exercise, but you should be saying that more work, no problem. I just need to increase my capacity so that more work becomes relatively comfortable. Yeah, so never compromise your capacity, because it is exactly what is shaping us right now. We have become more sedentary, so the capacity has decreases, the world has become warmer, and therefore relatively is hurting us. So as we experience a warmer world, you need to increase your capacity. Exercising is a great form. Yeah, so next time when your boss gives you more work, say, boss, no problem, just give me more time to exercise. Okay?
In a world gripped by rising temperatures, we in Southeast Asia stand at the front line of this global crisis. We are experiencing more intense, more frequent, and more severe heat events, creating unprecedented conditions that are threatening our health, our lives, and our livelihoods. We have always lived with the heat and humidity, so it's easy to think we are used to it. But as the heat intensifies, we must ask, are we truly prepared for what lies ahead? Our countries, provinces and homes are feeling the strain of increasing oppressive heat, with schools closing, work disrupted, and heat-related illnesses on the rise. The toll of chronic heat stress is also quietly impacting our health, productivity and mental well-being. The region's rapid urbanization and aging populations, plus socio-economic disparities, further amplify the impacts, making this issue impossible to ignore. The time to act is now. This urgency has led to the creation of the Global Heat Health Information Network Southeast Asia Hub, a regional initiative of the global network which is spearheaded by the WHO-WMO Joint Office for Climate and Health. Anchored at the Heat Resilience and Performance Center at the National University of Singapore's Yong Nu Lim School of Medicine, the hub will be central to the region's transformative action. Our mission: to foster collaboration, accelerate knowledge sharing, and catalyze evidence-based policy and action. By focusing on regional specific challenges and priorities to safeguard human health and well-being, we strive to prepare communities, protect populations, and empower individuals to thrive in a Southeast Asian climate.
Together as a region, this is our opportunity to build stronger, heat-resilient communities. For today, for tomorrow, and for future generations, let us commit to face these challenges head-on and build a heat-resilient Southeast Asia that can thrive in face of this warming world.
Together, let's rise above the heat.
พวกเรามาสู้กับความร้อนไป
Atu
ด้วย
ta
กัน
qua Apu go cho loa
Mari
jatuh.
ketahan melawan haba.
Cùng hợp sức phòng chống sốc nhiệt.
Daig natin ang init.
Bersama kita atasi rasa panas.
យើងរួមគ្នាយកឈ្នះបរិយាកាស
ห่วง
ឡើង
แห
ខ្លាំង
งก็สามารถเอาชนะอากาศร้อนอ้าวที่ท้าทาย
Okay, that is the Southeast Asia hub, and the last part is various languages from my part of the world saying that let's rise above the heat. So, Vishwas and Tin, the first thing you're going to do after this is to make a good video. Yeah. Yeah, this was articulated in the video, and this is in line with our headquarters. We call it the network. We are hubs, and from us, we will spread to make respective nodes here. You heard yesterday, to effect heat policy well, it must be hyper-contextualized, like buying apartments, right? Location, location, and location. So the precision of local enablers and sometimes limitations are important before we effect all these heat stress advisory. This is how we undertake this. We adapted from the Sendai framework for disaster risk response. We understand the risk, we strengthen its governance must be there. Our end game, that is what is the success definition. At the end game might not be ready now. The government must take responsibility. Yeah, we can't depend on philanthropic resources and best give you that catalytic start. You must have an end game in mind. Yeah, heat is horizontal. We must scale it and also think of transformative way to tackle this. Yeah, don't just adapt based on the old framework. If you look at the same problem, now is a good time to see how can I resolve this. Sometimes you don't have to adapt from an issue because that problem might not be optimal at the start. So be bold also. Sometimes we always go for low-hanging fruits, right? At some point the fruits will run out. So make sure you plant some and look for something more transformative. And you can see we have collectively as a region identified 3 focal areas: workers' heat, urban heat, and very interesting traditional and cultural practices of heat management. That is almost untouched. That's something we want to do more because our aspiration is not like every million exposure, 1,000 die is okay. Our aspiration is henceforth, no one should die from extreme heat. And to do that well, you have to go down to that nuances. Why did my grandma, again, not take my advice of drinking cold water and cold shower during hot days? Because my grandma doesn't believe in my advisory. Maybe the village head is somebody whom she trusts. Maybe it's a religious leader. Yeah, I always say that's the perfect platform. The most vulnerable probably seek God for help. Have we leveraged on those platforms to communicate our messages? Yeah, so be creative. Don't think that a professor at university can convince. I can't even convince my grandma. Yeah, so this is how we do it. We put together various representative UN reps, local governments. I anticipate some of us, one of the biggest challenges, right? It is quite a thing to bring together both the climate services and the health services. Today, in my part of the world, and I suspect in yours too, that the climate and weather services will be very on the ball. The health services still trying to figure out, hang on, what is my part in this role? I have many operational needs, so please, the heat might not be one. So we need to have that conversations because if this is heat health, the health representation must be shown here. At the end of it, who's going to fund it? Today, we have partners there, but we are constantly reviewing who will be the best players to effect this collective with us. Where are the businesses? Yeah, have we pitched in a strategy way? This is not an altruistic exercise. No, this is good for the people, good for your bottom line. So let's do it. It's a win-win for everyone. How we learn from our behavior and implementation scientists. Humans are very biased, right? Sometimes you present a perfect solution and they say, hang on, I didn't participate in the creation and development, and therefore, thank you, but no, I'm out. Humans are that biased. There are many successful products out there because they are not part of it. They didn't own it, right? So I heard a lot of conversation. It must be ground out CWAS must own it if there is a project with them. So that must be the spirit, co-create with the recipients that you want to effect these strategies. I'm not going to go through this. These are the what we do over the past 1 year. A lot of management, some we take leadership, but often you can see we leverage on existing platform. We are already running out of resources. Please always be creative. If there's a platform that brings together, let's say, all the medical deans of various countries, let's leverage on that platform and community heat health, and don't create another association or platform just to bring the medical deans. So that's just one of many examples. Leverage on platforms. Yeah, you want to convince a medical doctor, right? It's best to get another medical doctor to convince the dog, convince the dogs, literally. So be creative, but be very efficient in how we do this advocacy, because this part is important. But subsequently intended to find reputable partners. Yeah, people go with association. I may not trust you, but I trust him or her. Therefore, if that conversation is initiated by him or her, I will move forward. So be very shrewd, very creative in how we undertake this. I want to end, I had this conversation just last week. There was a conversation right now as we speak. Heat is here, air pollution, and then we have the energy crisis. I was discussing with my regional counterpart from ILO, and I told her, the black swan could be one day we have extreme air pollution, extreme heat, and there's a total power cut. Because just heat and air pollution, you study it carefully, the advisory can be contradicting. So I think my grandma, again, the last thing you want is to give my grandma during a very air polluted day and a hot day, because one said open the windows for ventilation because it's very hot, and the pollution advisory said close everything because it's not good for the pollutants to come. My grandma will take out that broom again and say, hang on, don't ask me to interpret two sets of advisory, do the research and give me one. But what if that third factor comes in and says, Grandma, you can't even turn on your fan indoor? I thought that is a black swan. And then my IO counterpart said, that is not a black swan, Jason, because today we have people living in that permutation. Yeah, so I'd like to take you a pause and say that there are people experiencing the worst that we think is futuristic. So I hope that serves as an inspiration. It is really a now thing, and it is a privilege for us to undertake this exercise. And then finally, being a thermal physiologist, I have to end with something that is more positive. As we embrace the warming world, Vishwas and team, again, you have to take this, burn this, spin it, and drink it down, because this is very powerful. Without any good heat management solution, everyone has a baseline, everyone has a maximum. So the good solution must reduce your start states, attenuate the rate of rise, and increase your ability to tolerate heat. Because by doing so, look at the y-axis, your heat capacity is now expanded. And this expansion has a positive implication of your ability to work well and safe in a hot environment. Oh man, I always say this slide is so good. I need to do it one more time. Yeah, because the quiz will be from this slide. I give you the very obvious. Without any heat management, this is your capacity. This will affect your livelihood and life. You should reduce, attenuate, and extend your ability to tolerate heat. Because by doing so, look at the y-axis. This expansion will do you good as you continue not just to survive, but thrive in the warming world. And the best way to do this is aerobic conditioning, followed by heat acclimatization, all kinds of cooling, and then hydration. So we do have the tools in the arsenal, but nothing beats behavioral thermal regulation. And those what I describe are what I call, from a sciencey term, autonomic physiological strategies. But behavioral strategy is the most powerful way to beat the heat. So work rest cycle is one example of a behavioral strategy. If I allow you to work continuously, you will hit the limit, you will puncture, and you will stop. But if I derive an optimal work rest cycle, you can complete the day's work effectively and safely. So the most powerful way to beat the heat is behavioral strategy, and work rest cycle is one classic example. So with that, thank you for listening. I wish you all the best as you continue to do the good work. The mandate is huge, but it's always a privilege to give than to receive. So count it as a privilege. Thank you very much. And before I go, as I say that, I'm going to give you this limited edition fan that said, I commit to building a more heat resilient, you can cancel the word East, say Southeast Asia. Yesterday, I also say, right, my Southeast Asia is orange in color. Yours in red, right? You have entered into the danger zone. So please take actions as quick as possible. So first one wins, what is the most powerful way to beat the heat? Anyone? Oh, sorry, I have only one fan, so please raise your hand. Anyone? There you go. What is the answer? That is step one. Behavior, and what is one example of that? Perfect. Now I'll come to you and what you do. Yes, a behavioral thermoregulation, the most powerful way to beat the heat. A classic example is optimizing your work rest cycle. With that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for such an engaging presentation. We have now come to a key moment in today's session and what we are all here for, the official announcement of the launch of the GIN South Asia Hub. For this, I would like to invite representatives from the GIN team, Ale, Shreya, Dr. Vatsa, Ms. Sujata Sonik, Dr. Gongal from the WHO team, and Dr. Jason Lee to please come for you're here. And the representatives from the partners, Vishwas, Bhargav, Abhiyant, and Anushka. Yeah. Thank you everyone. We will now move into the technical presentation on the vision and mission of the South Asia Hub. And for this, I would like to invite Dr. Vishwas Chitle, Fellow and Team Lead for Climate Resilience in CW, and Chair for the Southeast Asia Hub to deliver the presentation.
Thank you, Shravan, and thank you everyone for joining us here. And thanks, Jason, for really setting a very, very high standard of presentation. I don't think I will be able to beat that, but I will try my best. So can we get the slides online? Yeah. Yes, so I think since we are just 18 minutes away from the plenary, I will also keep it very short. So I will jump right into the governance structure, and Jason has been there guiding us on setting up the steering committee. To be frank, when we developed the proposal for this hub, we referred to them because everything is available on the website. I think it is a really good guidance that is already available on how Southeast Asia Hub is leading this, doing it already since 1+ years. So this will be the overall governance structure of the hub. We will have a steering committee that will comprise of subject matter experts from various different backgrounds who have been working on the topic of heat and health. But also we all understand that without finance, things will not move anywhere. So we also need representation from financial institutions, from multilateral development banks. Also, heat is cross-cutting. As Jason said, it is horizontal. So private sector is also getting impacted by it. We will need to move on from that typical research approach and really get private sector also to come and join us in this mission. So it will be a diverse kind of steering committee group. Then there will be hub management group, and then we have all 5 partner organizations. CW will host the hub secretariat in Delhi, also in close collaboration with Sustainable Futures Collaborative, NRDC, for India related work, and for the overall regional work we have UNSCAP based out of Bangkok, and BRAC University's James Grant School of Public Health. And Misha and Madhurima are online with us. Unfortunately, they could not join us. But overall, this is how the distribution will look like, and Bhargav and Abhiyant are here in the room, while Madhurima and Misha are online. So each of these people bring significant amount of experience from their policy analysis dimensions, from their work on heat governance, from their work on heat and health, and that scientific research that they have done will play a very crucial role on how do we bring that into policy intervention space, and that is what we are actually going to look at. Of course, it's a hub, so it should also bring many partners together, join us and share their evidence, share their scientific knowledge and their practices with us. It is not just that we will be taking that India story to the region and beyond, but also there will be some best practices that we will have to learn from Southeast Asia Hub, from other parts of the region as well. So it should facilitate the exchange of knowledge, and it should facilitate the learning process as a hub. So we are looking at that hub from that perspective. CW, as I said, is one of the partners there. So I think I will move into the slides, and then I will call upon Abhiyant and Bhargav to share their quick inputs as well. Yes. So in the overall original proposal, we had submitted 9 thematic working groups. Again, these 3 are just for example, and again it will depend on discussions with the steering committee, discussions with the overall team to finalize 2 to 3 thematic working groups, because the hub will be active for 3 years, and we will have to at least have a couple of regional frameworks also. Apart from that, there will be also some country-specific work that will happen in India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. So looking at the time span and looking at the the pragmatic approach of looking at how much we can achieve, we will fix up at least 2 to 3 working groups. And again, governance is as such a very cross-cutting topic. It will be considered as a cross-cutting theme, and this is the tentative representation of the 3 thematic working groups, which will be decided as we set up the steering committee. We will also look at how do we connect knowledge, networks and practitioners, because as I said, there is already a lot of knowledge that exists on this topic. Within India also, if you see, there is a lot of work that is happening in various states. Maybe local actors are doing that work, maybe local stakeholders are very much involved in the scale in order to understand that, okay, what is that, how do we bring everybody on that common
understanding of how heat impacts health, and then what are those nuances of it. So for doing that, we will get started with stakeholder mapping, consultation workshops in the regions, etc. And we will establish a digital hub knowledge platform. I think Southeast Asia Hub already has some of this in place, so it will be great to learn from them as we go forward as well. And as I said, we will get into accelerating evidence and innovation and looking into pilots that we want to run in different countries, as well as some regional approach will be there. In terms of capacity building and catalyzing policy action, again, we have seen that many of the organizations are already running some master classes or some webinars on these kind of topics. And then in the post-COVID era, it is not necessary that everybody attends everything in person. We should really use that advantage of digitalization. So we will, sorry, we will aim at a masterclass series, and also we will organize a regional heat health policy roadmap kind of discussion, which will define on how do we move forward as a region. Also, as Sierra or as GHIN defines South Asia region, also there is Maldives and Sri Lanka, which we have not considered so far in our application, but we will look at opportunities of bringing partners together from these two regions. In these two countries also a lot of work is already happening, and I think whatever we do has to be guided by that strong theory of change and monitoring framework, because unless and until we are able to document the baseline of where we stand right now as a hub and where do we want to be in 3 years from now, things will not be so clear. So we want to define that MEL framework and really look at how do we achieve those targets or those outcomes as a whole. Just in a brief, we want to bring, 60 is just a number, but we want to bring many other organizations to come together and join with us as the member of the hub and start sharing their knowledge, start sharing their evidence, and really see how do we join hands in this mission. Open access data sets, of course we all understand that a lot of us are doing a lot of research on important topics. Unless and until that data gets shared and that data gets used for policy intervention, it just remains as data. So that sharing and knowledge exchange is very important. We also understand that maybe in the region currently a lot of emphasis is already happening on training for health sector preparedness, training for disaster management preparedness, etc. But we also want to give more emphasis on trained women professionals in these departments of disaster management, health, etc. With a very focused approach on health, climate and urban resilience. Policy frameworks I have already talked about, and also, as I said, nothing will move forward without finance. So we also want to get commitments from at least 2 additional funders to expand this work in phase 2, because I'm sure that GHIN has a long-term goal and long-term aim behind this. It is not just that we will be active for 3 years. So with that, I will close my presentation and maybe invite Abhiyant and Bhargav for just quick 2-minute sharing of their thoughts, and then hand it back to, yes. So for all those who are here in the room and maybe those who were not there on our event on 19th, there is a QR code on your table. One QR code is about getting to know more about the hub, so you can scan that. And I'm sure that you are keen to partner with the hub, so there is another QR code that is to partner with us, and you can scan that. It is a very short Google form. It is just to express your interest on, okay, how do you think you can contribute to the hub? So please feel free to scan it. Anyways, all of us will be available here throughout the day for further discussions. So over to you, Abhiyant. Maybe you can just also do it for me.
Thank you, Vishwas. A very good morning to all, and I'll start with echoing to what Vishwas said. Jason, you have set really high standards for us, and we knew it from the day you started preparing. At least I knew it the day you started preparing for the Southeast Asia Hub. But we are neighbors, will learn from you, because one of the goal of global heat health information network with which NRDC has been a long-standing partner. Dr. Vijay Limai, Dr. Kim Norton, many of us are there with NRDC since long, and privileged with Jen since long, and privileged to be part of the South Asia hub as well. Like the global, network has the three goals of connecting people and institutions, advancing the evidence generation, and policy actions which are based on those evidences. The hub will try to, the South Asia hub will try to inculcate those ethos and pathos that we have set for the global standards for our global network, but will continue to learn from the regional hubs, of course from the Southeast Asia first, and continue to thrive in the region where the risk is amongst the high, but the opportunities are also humongous. So I welcome you all again to join the hub. Do scan the QR code, find your role. You may be contributing in any capacity. Fundings will come, but yeah, please join us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here at the launch of this important new initiative, the South Asia Hub of the Heat Health Information Network. And I couldn't help but recall sort of early conversations in 2013, 2014. Dr. Mavlankar is here. I was recalling earlier colleagues also from NRDC who were involved in the development of the Ahmedabad Heat Action Plan at that time. Anjali, Bhaskar, Nehmat, and of course Abhyant was involved from the IAPH Gandhinagar side. Thinking about how we were having conversations about how we can scale up the work from Ahmedabad to make it relevant and accessible to other cities. And now, sort of 13, 14 years on, we're talking about 250 to 300 heat action plans that are going to be developed over the course of a year or 2 years. The scale of work has dramatically increased during that time, aided, of course, by significant momentum provided by the NDMA and Dr. Vatsans, who's here, of course. Over the last 4 or 5 years, as heat has really picked up as an issue. I think the work that we envision with this hub, as Vishwas has talked about, really sort of coalesces the best available knowledge within the region, and particularly in India, but also hopes to look to the future as we consolidate what we're already doing here at this point in time. HAPs are a great tool for formulating what response needs to look like at a city level and at a state level. And what this hub will do is provide the impetus necessary to ensure that they are effectively implemented by training the right kind of personnel necessary to do that work at the level of cities. But at the same time, also look to the future and see how we can advance our thinking around not just response, but long-term resilience. Yesterday, there was fascinating work that was showcased by colleagues who are looking at the angles of heat and labor and the future of what livelihoods look like under an increasingly warming world. We also presented some of our own work with colleagues at Harvard and elsewhere, including NRDC, looking at how do we set more epidemiologically relevant health-specific heat thresholds. And both of these sort of straddle the two arenas that we're really interested in fostering, which is thinking about advancing the science and making that fundamental to policy making while not losing sight of the fact that progress is only relevant if it centers people and people's livelihood, people's well-being at the heart of it. So that's hopefully what we're able to achieve through this platform, and we welcome you all to join us as we embark on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes for audience interaction before we get into the closing and way forward. So if there are any questions, reflections, insights, maybe 2 or 3 of them. Yes, please.
Fish workers tend to be day long. No much protection is also possible for them, and they despise it. Trust me. You tell them to use a hat or a shade, no, they prefer to reduce that bait and catch as much fish as possible and bring on shore. So we need to really take them on board and look at what they're doing and how they are coping with this, and are there solutions to that segment of our society, which is the baseline of our protein. So this is just one point that I want to place on your table. I think when Aditya visited SDMA, I had specifically mentioned this, and I think there was an interview which you guys had coordinated, and he went to the Fisher Folk to talk to them about it. But it has to be brought out as a research and then probably thought much more in terms of how we support them. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Point very well taken. With that, we will get into the closing remarks and way forward of today's session. And for that, I would like to invite Dr. Krishna S. Vatsa, member and head of department at NDMA, to deliver the closing remarks and way forward. Dr. Vatsa has over 3 decades of experience in disaster risk management, very briefly, governance and public policy, and has played a key role in shaping India's approach to disaster. And everybody knows him well.
Good morning, friends. Thank you very much. It is something that we have been looking forward to. NDMA has always been very supportive of the hub right from the beginning. I think we have discussed the idea, and we look forward to working together and providing very intensive support so that the hub is successful. The hub makes a difference to improving the practice of heat wave management on the ground. There are certain challenges, I think, that we need to underscore, and I'm sure as the hub progresses, establishes itself, it will address those challenges. The first challenge is on the ground, in practice, heat is still considered a seasonal hazard, whereas it requires a year-round activity. It requires year-round capacity building. So and we don't have the kind of institutional facility. This is a big gap that we pursue voice. So important thing is to expand the community of practice. We have right now still, despite the fact that some of us are together, the community of practice is very, very small. So that needs to grow. And I think also that we need to develop more literature, training literature, more capacity building literature, and we also need to provide some kind of a facility where we can offer solutions, where some kind of a quality checking can be done. So hub has several kind of possibilities, several potential, and I'm sure that hub will rise to some of those demands as the practice grows and widens. So on behalf of the NDMA, I assure you of our full support, our collaboration, and I'm sure that we will work together, and the hub will really be a very successful, a functioning entity, and it will make its presence felt across the region and certainly across the country. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you, sir, and we are all very grateful to the leadership of NDMA in helping us shape this ecosystem. And with that, we come to the end of this technical session. We hope you have a great day ahead. Please enjoy the next few sessions as well. We would like to request everyone to join us for a group photo.
Yeah, the plenary of the day 2 of Global Heat and Cooling Forum starts right after this session in the Leaders Lounge, the hall upstairs. And for group.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this thematic session on power system resilience to extreme heat. It's such a critical and topical issue we'll be talking about. My name is Kiran Sabineni. I lead the Power Sector Resilience Program at CDRI. I want to thank all of you in attendance today, and I'd like to also thank NRDC Prayas Energy Group for bringing this session together. We have a lot of events in this sector, but I think what makes this collection of experts and practitioners so special and unique is the diversity of the group. We have people from the system operators who deal with extreme heat every season and who are making difficult decisions under extreme pressure. We have distribution companies who know and understand what insulation degradation and transformer failures look like at 48-degree ambient heat. We have policy think tanks, manufacturers who kind of bring this together into practice and incorporate measures to make governance and equipment resilient to extreme heat. The combination of these experts and practitioners and decision makers in this conversation to map solutions is precisely what CDRI was also designed to enable. Just to set some context, global grids are going through increasingly frequent periods of extreme heat and extraordinary stress. And the consequences among everyone working on this at CDRI, at NRDC, at Prayas, and across our member countries is that this is the new baseline we should be planning for. And the bottom line is we know the infrastructure vulnerabilities. We know the demand trends, how loads are behaving. What has been harder to do is connect the operational knowledge that lives in utilities and in silos and grid control rooms to the planning frameworks and building a pipeline to investment decisions from that point onwards. And the reverse is also true, translating that into actions on the ground. This is what I think this session should aim to be, the most valuable thing that can come out in the next 2 hours through our rich discussions is an honest accounting of what is actually happening on the ground, what is working, what is not working. With that, without taking further time, I would like to, I'm delighted to hand it over to Mr. Ramraj Narasimhan, CDRI's Senior Director, for the keynote address. Thanks once again.
Thank you very much for being here. It's a great pleasure to be part of this very intimate gathering. I think the setting is actually quite good. We are here at a table and to share experiences, learnings, lessons, and talk about one of the most pressing issues. I think welcome to those that have come from outside of Delhi. This week is actually typical of what Delhi goes through in terms of weather, and this is just the beginning. Probably we have it's only going to get hotter, and that is symptomatic of what is happening with the world. Every year we keep hearing of records. This year has been the hottest, and I believe this is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. Hence those that are gathered here have a huge role. There is another session going on about how to address in different, yesterday there was a question of addressing heat impacts on health. Likewise now, infrastructure is also going to be affected. All aspects of life is affected by heat, and infrastructure is not immune to it. Power infrastructure is absolutely also not immune to it. So I think it's a great gathering here today. And I'd like to thank Prayas Energy Group and NRDC for convening such a august gathering today. I'd also like to acknowledge and echo what Kiran mentioned in terms of who all are here. It's a nice cross-section of stakeholders that have a role in addressing heat issues in infrastructure, particularly power infrastructure. So I think we have that nice cross-section ranging from operators to also other, other aspects, for instance, regulators and also manufacturers. Personally, I think there is a lot that each of us see heat in a different way play out in terms of what it is. Luckily, probably most of us have that DG backup to fall on, but that's not exactly what bulk of the population have or bulk of the enterprises have to fall back on, which means impact is felt very differently across different sections of the population. And I think what we have today to discuss will help not just highlight the problems but also focus on ways in which we can come together to address this issue. So currently I think we are going through this kind of a transformation in the world where there has been no such precedent, except if we dig back into many millennia of Earth that exists, where there has been warming and cooling. There may be an epoch which corresponds, but in the modern history, I think we are living through a singular phase where this kind of heat and the impacts that we are seeing is also amplified because of our dependence on it's an indication of progress, movement from manual kind of systems into machines which are unfortunately run on power. So basically we are amplifying our own risk from that context. It is also, the changing climate is also changing every facet of our economy. It is also the rising temperature is increasing cooling demand. And cooling demand is not just for people, but I believe everything that we do today requires information, and information comes to us via towers, but then they are driven by data centers at the back end, which unfortunately require huge cooling. Of course, they require immense power as well. So, and the backbone for all of that is energy infrastructure, power infrastructure, which was not meant for the kind of temperatures, ambient temperature, or the situation that we are faced with. Hence, we are trying to address a challenge with a limited kind of weaponry that is available or the systems that are available. Hence, this calls for new ways of thinking. We cannot completely uproot everything and replace them with new systems. Hence, how do we manage with what we have better? We also are looking at various consequences of these impacts. We are seeing the generation efficiency is dropping, transmission conductors are sagging, and the transformer failures are evident during heat peaks. System operators are actually rushing for emergency procurement, and hence the impacts are felt in terms of families and enterprises that are going through without power on the days that are the hottest, when they actually require these. So the extreme heat that we are facing is a systematic threat to energy security, economic stability, and human welfare. And that, unfortunately, is concentrated most in our global south. Hence, when we look at, for instance, last year, more than 40 countries have experienced peak demands that broke all kind of records. And they are all from the global south, largely. So, cooling demand is also on a trajectory which is on the upswing, and it is unlikely to go down. Which means that probably what we have today is a new baseline that we have to deal with. While we look at the globe this way, India is not very different. India actually is also defining what the global response to such a problem should be. We have a scale of the transition, the cooling transition that we have here, the density of population that actually depends on this, and the ambition of the economic growth story that India has, they're all converging here. So hence this is probably the place that probably the world is going to look at how we manage it. And our discoms are having to navigate all of these challenges with infrastructure that are many decades old. And the regulatory frameworks that were probably written for a more predictable demand environment, and the financial constraints that do not leave enough room for us to play with to address these situations. This is not intended as a criticism, but it's more like an honest kind of a reflection of the challenge. And that is exactly why convening the kind of people that are here today, convening the kind of discussion that we hope that you will all contribute to matters so much. It's not like solutions don't exist. The question is, what is needed to translate all of these operational experience and expertise into necessary changes in both policies and in investment decisions. And from CDRI, for us, power sector is one of the critical infrastructure sectors that we focus on. When we identified impacts of disasters broadly as a whole on economy, we found there are a few sectors which bear the brunt of impacts. Power is one such sector. We found that in most of these critical infrastructure sectors, more than 70% impacts come from climatic sources. And obviously, you know the kind of hazards that we are talking about. We are talking about heat, we are talking about flooding, we are talking about cyclones. And hence for us, when we are looking at power sector resilience, we have been seeing it through various advanced technical studies, policy research, design code recommendations that can help strengthen resilience, grid resilience across various systems. We started first with Odisha, where we looked at the coastal power infrastructure, particularly the vulnerability to cyclones. But then it is something that is informing our work in other areas as well. Around a year ago, we started collaborating with Prayas and NDMA to look at how heat itself is getting impacted. So Prayas is very proud that they have done a huge, very investigative, very thorough diagnostic study, which it's more like a scoping study. It brings decades of their own experience into play, understanding, and the wisdom of several people that have contributed to it, to look at how power infrastructure is impacted, various facets of power infrastructure, from generation to demand and to all the regulatory frameworks that go around informing actions. So while that is a diagnostic, it's a scoping, actions are yet to be implemented, and hence probably what the exercise identifies a particular way forward for moving the needle further, but then probably we'll have conversation around how some of these can be implemented. Now, as a global coalition, we are a coalition, a global partnership of about 53 countries as of date and 12 organizations. So we can see that heat is not something that is impacting only a few countries. In fact, it is a topic of tremendous interest across the coalition. So what we are hoping is learning from the experiences here and also in this forum to be able to inform our own work across our coalition. So I'd like to also identify 3 priorities that we can consider as a call to action. The first one is for us to invest in operational intelligence. This is basically forward-looking and real-time temperature demand modeling, predictive asset health monitoring, and AI-assisted grid management. These should become operational infrastructure in the increasing heat era. Second one is to look at unlocking the demand side flexibility. Demand response and basically time of use tariffs, battery storage are some of the levers that are available to system operators that face extreme peak demand. The regulatory frameworks probably should enable their deployment at scale. The DISCOMs cannot shoulder all of this alone. Instruments should come that facilitate such actions, climate finance, instruments from the MDBs, risk insurance, innovative procurement models must all be aligned to heat resilience investments. And finally, the third point is of building institutional capacity. Now, we have learned hard lessons from the very severe summers of the past. I'm sure we will learn new lessons this year. Each of these, we must be able to capture what has worked, where we have opportunity to learn from each other, and how we can translate that kind of learning into more systematic planning and preparedness. So, and I'd just like to close by saying that we do know that probably everybody in this room knows that the purpose of infrastructure is to ensure that power infrastructure or any other infrastructure is for it to be available when it is needed the most. And I think now is the time when it is needed. It must be made strong enough to be serving the purpose that it is designed for. The question is not whether our power infrastructure is under stress. I think it is given that it is under great stress. The question is, what are we going to be doing about it, and how can we do it? What needs to be done? And that is probably a debate. That is a conversation that we hope today we have. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to again congratulate NRDC and the Prayas Group for partnering to host this kind of an event. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Ramraj. I think you've set the context very well and also highlighted a lot of the critical aspects. We have a short presentation to just brief on the different aspects that we've covered as part of the scoping studies that we've done, and also going forward listed some of the actions that we all can think about leading to the roundtable today and what is expected from the discussions. So I will run through this quickly because I think Ramraj has made my job pretty easy. So we're talking about statistics, yes. 2024, all of us know, has been an extreme heat event for everyone. What it has done to the power sector are exorbitant numbers in terms of the peak demands. Projected peaks for even 2026 are much higher than what it was in 2024. And the systems need to gear up to be able to meet that peak. India has seen about 103 million distribution transformer failures in 2024. All of them may not be attributed to heat, but it really talks about the kind of systems that we are dealing with and which have the higher chance of failure when extreme heat events also occur. Along with that, through the last 1.5 days, we are all talking about urban centers becoming heat sinks and creating to more heat islands. In the terms of infrastructure, I think it multiplies its effect, where the demand for electricity comes largely from urban centers and which puts a lot of stress on the infrastructure to be able to meet that demand along with dealing with the urban heat island impacts that are being created. So Prayas along with CDRI did this scoping study to identify across the value chain what kind of issues and challenges are occurring, and also look at some of the actions that can be undertaken and can be looked at as opportunities to address these challenges. So as I think Ramraj also very rightly put it, across the entire sector, right from demand to transmission, distribution, as well as generation and at the system operation end, there are several challenges that are occurring, which is creating the larger challenge of being able to balance the grid and maintain the flexibility that is required at the same time. And I think weather is what is adding to the complexities, where on a sudden day you have extreme heat, which requires more demand, and on the other end there is extreme rainfall or intense rainfall that happens across a day. In Maharashtra, typically, especially this summer, we've been observing this very, very closely. Across the entire state, there have been instances of extreme rainfall with hailstones coming through, and on the other days, there is extreme heat that we are all experiencing. And I can see all people who are from Maharashtra nodding their heads because this is a reality that we've been experiencing. So on demand and its aspects, so basically we've been discussing about this even through the last 1.5 days, that demand, electricity demand rises when heat rises, which essentially means that there are sudden surges that are coming on the grid, and this has an impact not just on what is happening at the consumer end, but how the distribution networks respond, how the generation responds to keep up with it, and how the transmission grids can manage this surge in demand. Just in the previous session, I think we've been hearing and talking about appliances that are required to provide this respite from increasing heat. And for the residential sector specifically, we are seeing that ceiling fans, air conditioners, and air coolers are contributing to significant proportion of the demand that is coming from these sectors. And interestingly, projections state that there is about 18% growth that is expected to come from specifically cooling demand in residential spaces. So one is, yes, to understand how the cooling demand increases, but there are also other factors that are contributing to this demand increase. One could be the agricultural aspect, where more heat requires more water, which means more irrigation, need for more irrigation, more pumping load. And along with that, also how industries and other allied commercial setups manage with meeting their short-term demand. So some of the actions that can you just check? I think it's there. Yeah. So some of the important actions and work that we need to focus on in terms of demand is to be able to forecast it well, and to be able to understand where and how and when this demand is going to come from, and what are the aspects that actually influence it. Within residential demand, the design of how buildings and constructions are happening will really be definitive of thermal comfort for people in these spaces, and hence existing codes, implementation of existing codes, and also about how they are adopted at the state, at the city level, will create a larger impact on how demand is shaped. At the same time, also appliances, like we were just talking about in the last plenary session, is the standards and labeling of these appliances a very, very critical aspect, and how we ratchet up these standards to ensure that efficiency improves in these spaces is very critical. And also understanding how people respond to tariff signals and how behavior really impacts how demand is shaped are some critical aspects that need to be looked at. On the transmission and the distribution front, Ramraj was just talking about how transmission lines are impacted by heat, what it actually means, how it impacts the entire energy flows, is critical to the entire meeting the demand aspect. At the same time, not just the lines, but the cables, the towers, the distribution transformers, the high-end transformers that we have, all of them are impacted by heat in some sense or the other. And then how do we really, A, quantify these impacts, and also how do we look at opportunities to address them. And like we talked about, distribution transformer failures is also reflective of the kind of systems that we have already on the ground, which essentially points to the fact that many of our systems are already aging, and they are not currently designed to even operate at higher temperatures. But we've been experiencing this on ground. So how do we really look around these issues, and what can we do to address them? So typically, one is the infrastructure and how they are set up, but at the same time, looking at issues that come along with it, which is this existing persistent demand, which leads to more failures. At the same time, higher costs of operation and maintenance, where it is not just about the infrastructure, but it's also the kind of personnel that you require when these operation and maintenance activities can be undertaken. What are the challenges in them? And I think we have some interesting members on the panel here who come up with different SOPs which can help them address the O&M better. And then also, of course, external events that lead to more damages, including wildfires, extreme heat, yes, but also floods and other conditions that are happening. So What this requires is to have better audits of the entire systems that we have on ground, and planning for better replacements, and I would say planned replacements of all the infrastructure that we have. At the same time, assessing hotspots where these problems are existing and addressing those problems sooner than having a nationwide or a statewide rollout. Also looking at different practices that are being already adopted for better O&M, not just in India but also elsewhere, of how people are dealing with extreme heat and failing grids, and what can be done in terms of better maintenance and operation. And finally also coming to the issues around standards. So to start with, how these, what defines the kind of lines, the kind of distribution transformers that we are installing. Again, we have some experts here on the panel who can talk more about the entire standards and the manufacturing practices that are happening around equipment today. And of course, like we talked about, generation also being significantly impacted, and this generation impact is not just on the thermal power stations, but it also significantly impacts how solar power plants produce electricity, how their efficiency drops, what can be done to reduce that impact. At the same time, the newer systems that are getting installed into the grids, the battery energy storage systems, they also play now a very significant role in allowing the grids to become more flexible, for more RE penetration, and also to be able to manage the demand well. But the battery energy systems themselves have a lot of challenge in how they should be maintained. We again have experts on the panel discussion today who can talk more about this. And finally, yes, the champion, I think, of the entire system is how the markets operate, and the challenges that the markets are seeing in terms of how extreme heat leads to demand and challenges at the generation end at the same time, and how the grid operators and the markets can really help in balancing out all these challenges. So yes, overall, in terms of the system monitoring and ensuring resilience, we need to look at or understand demand better. Also look at how power purchase is happening across different states, across different distribution companies, and what is it that really defines their current agreements, as well as looking at short-term power. Critical aspects in O&M are also fault detection. What kind of systems do we have deployed on the networks to be able to detect this before? I think Ramraj was also talking about better monitoring systems. And these are critical not just at the generation end, but important on transmission, on distribution networks as well. And then also looking at the provisions that are already existing to be able to handle emergencies in case of extreme events. So just to also put into context that all of these systems are then also impacted by several stress factors, which includes the gaps in how systems are currently existing, the gaps that we have in better demand forecasting, understanding how market volatility really impacts power purchase as well as short-term power procurement, and managing the imbalance in the grid, which comes with frequency variations, harmonics, and the kind of systems that we have at the generation end as well. So some of the aspects that we kind of found as part of the study that we did was that many of these are essential and needs to be done like more immediately, is to look at the standards that we have for the equipment, looking at grid resilience as a larger issue than just pocket problems, ensuring the demand side management and demand flexibility become more ingrained into the distribution operations, and then also assessing the costs that are involved in being able to meet that resilience. So just a very quick, I'm not going to go into much detail, but these are just some of the immediate and the short-term actions that we listed down to say that these are what are required to be done by different stakeholders across the grid. And yes, so with that, we do have identified areas where efforts need to be put, and there are, yes, experts in this room who can add to those insights. Through the roundtable, the objective is to understand more from your perspectives, your daily operations, and your daily research and challenges, as to what can be done to improve the overall resilience in the sector. So I will leave you with some of these questions, and then I'll hand over to Aditya now to just moderate the session.
Thank you. Thanks, Kiran, Ramraj, and Shweta for setting the context, and thanks NRDC for leading this, coordinating this, and particularly Cherry, who has been doing a lot of background work. Now, my idea, or at least the goal for myself, is to speak as less as possible. I will be a very light moderator, but just the overall objective is we have a mix of practitioners and experts, and we have a report that we have worked with CDRI. So feel free to talk on any of these aspects or on your experience. If you find something which is not, which you differ in your opinion about whatever we have mentioned, it will be great to have. But the idea is to figure out what are the practices that are being adopted right now by the power sector to deal with extreme heat, and what are the practices that you would really like to adopt, and what are the limitations that you're facing right now. So that's the overall objective. And just two things that I would like to put out is one, this particular convening is different from our usual power sector convening, because there are people from multiple disciplines over here. There are people from public health, people working on labor rights, people working on different aspects of extreme heat. So it would be good if we do not use technical terms or keep its use limited. And I was talking with Adarsh and Punit before the round table, where we figured out we have reached a stage where we ourselves don't know what's the difference between technical and non-technical term. But just a hint, if you find yourself talking about flux density of distribution transformer in Teslas, you have already gone too far, so don't do that. But everyone is, so don't dumb it down. I mean, the idea is to get that broad picture here. So that's number one. And number two is there are a lot of things happening in the power sector, and we all are working on different aspects of it, and we are excited about it. But please keep your interventions limited to the impact of extreme heat and what differently you have to do in whatever you are doing right now. So that's the idea. So two things, don't use a lot of technical terms and focus on extreme heat and its impact. So that's the idea. And the way it will have is we have identified a few discussants. These discussants are from distribution companies, from markets, and experts working on different, from storage, and experts working on different aspects of power sector. So please draw on your own experiences or your own observations of power sector on the comments that you are making. We have already shared some pointers with you. Feel free to comment on them. Feel free to comment on the points that we have raised or add any of your points. The good thing is we have a relatively smaller size, so we can be a little bit flexible about the time that we can, but just little bit because we have the session before the lunch, so we do need to be mindful about time as well. So that's me. We'll start with the distribution companies who are at the forefront of all of it, and we have two people, one from Tata Power Northern Odisha Distribution Limited and one from BACS. So maybe I'll start with Mr. Karunakar Jha, and very briefly about yourself first, one or two lines, and then what I would like for both of you to talk on is the impact of extreme heat on the distribution planning, on your distribution infrastructure planning as well as power procurement planning. So over to you, Mr.
Good morning. I am Karunakar Jha, and I am from Tata Power Northern Odisha Distribution Limited. Many of you would be knowing that the Odisha Discoms were privatized in 2021, and since then there has been a lot of development in the performance of Odisha Discoms, And Orissa is also famous for the climate change or the cyclone impact. Cyclone is a recurring feature in Orissa, and every year we brace for it. And at the same time, we pray to Jagannath, because and the Lord Jagannath is interwoven in the culture very, and we pray that it doesn't happen. But every year we find that एक दो साल के अंदर कभी वो एक बार रिपीट होता ही है. In 2024 we had cyclone Dena, and in 2021, just after privatization, cyclone Yas devastated Odisha, and both were very painful experience. So as Mr. Aditya has said, we have to limit it to this heat impact. So I would not go deep into this cyclone impact, but cyclone is also connected with the heat, that if the heat impact is high, it is mostly coupled with cyclone, or there is a phenomena called Kal Baisakhi, northwestern winds, which is very prominent in Odisha and Bengal. These winds are very intense winds, 40 to 50 kilometer, 50 to 60 kilometer speed for a very short duration, like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 25 minutes. And the impact within this 25 minutes, the impact is devastating. Like we find every day in this period, now the Kal Baisakhi season has started, and you would find that the daytime would be intense, hot, humid, and by evening, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., strong winds would start flowing, and then we would hear stories coming from different parts कि 60 पोल एक साथ गिर गए, they were flattened, huge amount of trees uprooted, fallen on the line. And since the lines are very old, dilapidated, long lines, like 100 kilometers lines are very common in Odisha for 11 kV, and 300 kilometer lines are also there for 33 kV and 11 kV. So sitting here in Delhi and looking at the urban conditions, it's very difficult to imagine that the electrical infrastructure is like that. Slowly we are trying to change, bringing the line network length through 50 kilometer, within 50 kilometer, but everybody knows that in electrical system this takes time, a lot of time. So in 2024, when the heat wave started, I would start with my own experience. Since I am relocated in Odisha by 2021, my family resides here, and I do not use actually AC. I do not have any AC in my home because I try to avoid AC, and also it creates a lot of health problems. But that gave me a first-hand experience of how that heat wave condition is. From the last week of March till the last week of April, it was scorching heat. And Baripada, Mayurbhanj, it's a jungle area, mostly it is jungle area, and it came to a national notice that temperature has risen to 45 degrees, above 45 degrees Celsius, and it became a hot spot. And then Balasore temperature crossed 46 degrees Celsius. Even in Jajpur, the temperature remained. So all of the Orissa experienced continued heat wave, where that average normal temperature, ambient temperature, persisted for 45 to 46 degrees Celsius. In those periods, like I said, I felt at my own level, it's a very hot condition, and at the same time, the temperature, the load crossed like anything. 2 or 3 locations, one in Baripada, where we found that because of the sustained temperature, 43 degrees Celsius, 44 degrees Celsius, our transformers in some particular area, they started to fail. Not only failed, they failed with fires. Fire emanating from those lines, from the LV side, starting from LV side, and similar experience we had in Balasore and in Kyonchar. Kyonchar is not actually coastal area, but it's a small town with districts. It's a district center, has one medical college and some engineering colleges, and famous. It's a hilly area actually, you can say. But the continued temperature created a condition when the load of that area rose from 18 MVA to 24 MVA. That is a rise of 33% load increase. Similarly, in Baripada, as I have said, the failing continued, and then we found to our horror that we have to catch up. very fast, because the network condition was such that not only heat was creating such a bad impact, our network situation was also contributing to that. For example, because of that poor network, I was unaware that in a lot of area the line moved like that. LT, we had one phase going in one direction, second phase going in another direction, third phase going in another direction, and you can see the amount of unbalanced load coming on the transformer. I had seen my loading in 100 kVA transformer. There was loading of like 150, 200, 250, and 145, something like that. So very unbalanced load. So transformer failure was common. 7 to 8 transformers failed in a line, and then we started changing those transformer with bigger transformer. At the same time, we started trying to do the small interconnections, because diverting the load from one transformer to another transformer as soon as possible. It is not very easy to actually change the transformer in a very short interval of time. So we focused on creating linking lines, then balancing of lines, so that we continued 3-phase running on the one direction, and creating a lot of different LT conditions. Similarly, in Kyonjhar, where the load has increased from 18 MVA to 24 MVA, the work started on a war footing, and we actually started with updating our PSS, primary substation. These are normally 8 MVA, 13 MVA transformers. So we upgraded all our transformers to 16 MVA, from 12 MVA, 8 MVA to 16 MVA. And we started with a concept that we need to have a firm capacity in the network. Firm capacity means if you have 3 transformers, so if the biggest one goes out, then the other 2 transformers should be able to take the load. Similarly, on the 11 kV side, the work was same, and we tried with all those things. And after that, because Tata Power in Delhi, we had experience in Delhi of transformation, the distribution operations, we implemented the same there, and we are now putting a lot of emphasis on using the technology and data, basically to get information about the transformers. For example, all our distribution transformers above 63 kV and above, they are all now metered. We have a transformer number 78,000, comprising mostly of 25 kV and smaller size transformers, but bigger size transformer of 100 MVA and 63 kV and 400 kV all now are metered, and our energy audit department gives the data every month or every week, even if it is required, to the network planning group, and network planning group actually takes the data and creates a plan to change the transformers in the next coming. But again, taking action for a foreseeable future is very different than when the load suddenly throws up. And if the load suddenly goes from say 70%, which is a threshold that our transformer should not be loaded beyond 70%, but if the load comes suddenly to 90%, 100%, then you have very little room actually. What you can do at that time is you need to have a spare amount of good spare capacity in warehouse, so that you can actually upgrade, and then looking at the load continuously, like madam said, that you also have to do load shedding. In load shedding part, we have arrangement with SLDC, that we have given load shedding in 3 different compartments, like level 1, level 2 and level 3. And rural feeders are normally considered in the first level, that whenever some this type of condition comes, rural will be shed first, and then the semi-urban, and then the urban, and then there comes the industrial load also, which is totally like a holy cow, we can't touch them, but the situation is such that because in TPNODL our load mostly comes 55 to 60% of our load is actually industrial load. It has actually changed. The composition has changed in the last 5 years. When we started, the domestic load was around 65% of our total load. Now it has just changed. And so we have very little room even to do the load shedding. So technology, we believe that technology actually provides a lot of power, and at the same time it can also help in planning. So that is one of the experience I can say share, particularly what happened that time and what we are doing. Now coming to this part, I will now just take 1 or 2 minutes more. Coming to this part, learning from that experience and learning from the cyclone experience also. Sorry, I missed that part. What happens in this period, that every day 1 or 2 of our districts is suffering Kalvesachi. So for up to 3 p.m. the load would be very high, and after 3 p.m. There would be experience of intense wind coupled with thunderstorm and lightning. Lightning is a very, very severe impact on Odisha discoms, and you would be surprised to know that maximum amount of fatality due to lightning happens in Odisha. Almost 200-300 numbers of fatality occurs due to that every year, and lightning creates a very difficult problem for us, that most of the area is coastal area. In coastal area, insulation failure, that is pin insulator failing, is very rampant. What happens in coastal area? The saline water, they deposit on the insulators, create a path for tracking, and whenever lightning occurs, we normally hear that 20 lines, the insulator failing at same, every insulator in a succession fails, and changing those insulators for recovering the line is really takes a lot of time. So mostly and since it occurs in the night time, evening time, and recovery has to be done in the night time, and there is a lot of forest and this area, so the recovery becomes really very painful, and this is occurring on a daily basis. For the 3 months we would be constantly hit by this in one area, in another area. So the workers also gets fatigue.
Sorry to interrupt. I forgot to mention one point. I mean, it will be good if we limit individual comments to 5 to 7 minutes, because we have a lot. But there are very good insights into the distribution. Mostly you talk from monitoring as well as focusing on the infrastructure part of it. So Adarsh, if I can move to you, and you can also focus on the infrastructure planning, but also if you can touch on the power procurement, then that also would be good. And I'll come back to you if the time allows. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, human beings are always energy consumers, right? So one way or another we consume energy. Right now, majority of us are switching to electricity, electron, instead of burning firewood. It's just who we are as a civilization. So our dependency on electricity has become a serious business. Why I'm saying that is a consequence of climate on human behavior has been there as long as there are human beings. That is nothing new there. Our dependency on electricity has become severe, so these consequences are showing up, and the word resilience has been put on top of it. Fair enough. There are two aspects. I'm going to go in the order that impacts us. Climate change impacting power procurement is the serious consequence. I'm going to start with that. That is where we feel the heat on a daily basis. Every day we sit for a daily review and next day review at 8 p.m. CEO and I spend with our system operations, power management team, half an hour every day. We understand what was today's forecast, how much did we hit, what is tonight's forecast, how much we expect to hit, how is our market volatility, can we buy, can we not buy, right? So this is a serious business. For example, a lightning struck, which is a very serious problem, and outage happened, we can say it's act of God, right? Which is serious, right? But if I say I didn't buy power, it's foolishness. So that means let's see, that's where we face the heat. Second thing, I'm going to say this out of reality. Pretty much today in India, most of the world, barring very advanced utilities, even today, when I do planning, I look at my aggregate growth, CAGR based load growth. I use all these fancy words. Now I lead the team of network planning. So now, and that's what I'm fixing. That's my first priority, is to fix it. We do not consider weather impact. We do not consider even the solar growth, EV growth. I only look at my transformer was loaded X kilowatt last year, this year this much, so average is 4%, so next year is 4%. That's what I do. Okay. All this theory exists, but practice is far away. Correct? So I'm pointing out my honest, putting dirty laundry on the table here. The idea is very simple here, which is, unless I plan a grid that can handle resilience, I cannot build a grid that can handle resilience. I can always talk about it as a post consequence. Hot day, my transformer failed. Then I go fight with my operations team. Why did you take 4 hours to fix the transformer? Instead of, if they ask us back, why didn't you plan? Who's going to answer that? I'm going to say, oh, pata nahi, right? No. See, we need to be very honest about things. So that's exactly what we're doing. Is resilience was often considered as an act of God, even like forest fires. That's where the word came into seriousness. Storm. These micro resilient events was often neglected, like it happens once in a while. Why should we bother? But as Mr. Jha mentioned so rightly, now the duration of these hot days are expanding, increasing. So we got to learn how to incorporate them into our planning. So resilience is now going to impact reliability. There are two very different words, very serious words. Unless we understand how to match them, nothing will work. And the third bottleneck is, when I go, say I need to upgrade an asset because the driver is resilience, will the regulator understand that? Right. See, these are all practical issues. So we have to cover it under reliability or aging. It doesn't encourage transparency and honesty for us. So all in all, the consequence of weather, to summarize, on a human behavior is nothing new. We, as a utility, take power procurement seriously because every leadership, any management, executive management of any utility in the world, they don't want to induce outage because I did not buy power. So that is taken seriously. However, very few even ask, did we plan to avoid a problem? Heat is not the only problem. In Delhi, flooding is a serious problem. Even a little rain, water goes everywhere. Can't even drive my car. And there are Yamuna plain regions which are seriously impacted by flooding, and it's a serious problem. And then when I put a transformer in an area where flooding happened last year, I don't even increase my plinth height. To me, this is just blatant issues. Basically what I'm fixing is we are making a catalog within the utility that failed because on a hot day when it failed, what temperature was observed in the neighborhood, because we don't have sensors necessarily every time. And also often these failure happen in low income areas or crowded areas. During flooding, equipment fails, and we also do preemptive load shedding to avoid any health or hazard issues, which is very serious business. Unless we document, we cannot be aware. Unless we are aware, we cannot fix. Thank you.
Thanks. That's great, and I come back to both of you in a follow-up discussions, because I know you have been doing quite a lot of interesting initiatives on digital twins and monitoring of real-time monitoring of distribution infrastructure in the later round. But after this, I'll like to move to Mayur from Copper Association, International Copper Association, and we both India Copper Association, and we both the DISCOMs talked about the distribution transformer failure, and ICA has done a lot of work on distribution transformers. So I would like to request you to reflect on that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, before going at, there were a few, suggestions which is coming up just for information. In BIS now they're talking of revising the maximum ambient temperature. The committee is formed already, and there has been discussion how we adopt this, because the Indian standards largely are based on IEC standards, which is different ambient conditions altogether. So it took a long time really, but now BIS understood and they are trying to adopt these standards to the Indian conditions. So the maximum 40 degrees Celsius, what was on slide, is going to change very soon. So particularly on transformer, I was really surprised to see some number like 1.3 million failure. I'm not including these two utilities because they are not really a utility. But by and large, if you really see the government enterprises today they deal with, the definition of failure is very flexible. I mean, it is, if you ask them, it depends on whom they are reporting to. So accordingly, the number changes. But in reality, the issue of fire also was mentioned there. And when we really started working on transformers, we first saw this issue of the higher failure rate. Unfortunately, we talked mainly about the urban area, but rural area is no exception, particularly for the summer. And particularly in rural area today, if the transformer fails, the consumer has to be in the dark for at least 4 or 5 days, sometimes in 8 days also. So that is the issue related, affecting their lives. And that is more serious because I'm sure the Tata Power and BSCS and Torrent will take care of the urban customers, but the rural customers, really there is nobody to take care of. If you really see the rural customers, if you really see the load growth happening in rural area is also phenomenal, and the AC penetration is not now limited only to urban area and rural area. So the summer is largely a cause of concern. If you really move around Rajasthan, if you move in the Maharashtra, Vidarbha side, summer is largely the concern even for the rural people when it comes to the reliability of the grid is concerned. What we have seen is that it starts with the understanding of the summer itself, and particularly when the things goes to the headquarter in terms of understanding the summer, there is no visibility in decision making, particularly when it comes to the planning part of this distribution system from the summer perspective. Although the people at the region level understands it, but they cannot communicate effectively with the headquarters. That is the first problem we have seen. So as a result of that, in a process of standardization, their product requirement cannot be heard at the region level, at the headquarter level overall. So they end up having the same product which is designed, optimized, and then I don't want to discuss the issues and challenges related to infrastructure in the government utility sector, because that is the issue irrespective whether it's summer or not. There is a larger quality issues overall. But if you really look at this standard, the overall the standard and the procurement norms is not considering the existence of summer in the in the climate overall. So that creates a larger problem there. Then we have seen the choices of the materials are never made with the with the requirement of the ambient conditions. We consider that summer is equivalent if you really get into technical, which I'm not supposed to talk, but if you really interpret that, then you have to design the equipment for more severe condition, which is more like loading of it. And unfortunately, that part is totally missing in terms of procurement. We did multiple studies of failure of these transformers, and although the transformer failed, what Adarsh was mentioning is summer incidents, but what we have seen is that the insulation deterioration, which starts in summer, the failure may happen somewhere 1 month down the line summer. And there are multiple reasons for it. Again, I don't get much on technical, but these things are totally ignored even at the procurement level and then design level as well. So the awareness in the entire purchase system of understanding the requirements of ambient condition and understanding the requirement of the customer is totally missing overall. The next part is about the O&M practices. Assets will fail, and you somewhere mentioned aging asset. I don't agree with the aging asset. We taxpayers has funded the reforms last so many years, and you won't believe how many transformers they have bought in last 10 years. So I won't call it as aging assets. It is the taxpayers' money, and this will still continue for a longer time. And assets won't be aged out as per the design life or anything. This is all the the inefficiencies overall, if you want to say. So O&M practices also goes with that, and O&M practices are what we have seen, particularly when it comes to distribution transformer. It can be, I know there are the examples in Tata Power in Delhi where when they acquired the DESU assets, they did, and even BSES, they did really the O&M or repairs of the old asset as if making like a new transformer totally. Now that sort of the culture is not there, and if you really see the root cause goes into again in terms of the intent overall of making the assets withstanding for the climate adversities overall, and that is the last. Most of the time we find the solutions are I would say non-engineering, and there are all sorts of the temporary approach to the problem rather than the permanent solution overall. So even at the repair part of it, what we have seen is that the crisis management has become a normal business even it comes to repair rather than repairing it for new life or etc. And the last and most important thing what we have seen is the asset management. We heard today from Mr. Jha that they have started getting the data of the transformer and the incidents through the intervention of the data, but the asset management is really the weakest link today in reform since we started in 1992. So if you cannot manage, maintain, keep the records of the assets in a up-to-date way, then it's very difficult even at the field level in order to make sure that you get prepared for the summer, etc. We did some of the pilots in terms of trying to change the culture in terms of repair, trying to build in the performance-based repair contracts, particularly in distribution transformer, and we are still inching towards the so-called the repair contracting processes. So the technical validation part is very well understood. We did that in Nagpur itself, where the transformer didn't fail for last 5 summers after doing that. But converting that into the process, what we call it as the tendering and all, is much more challenging, I would say. And that is where currently we are sailing, we are moving towards. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing out the points related to procurement practices and management. And I see your point. We do have better managed utilities in this room, but thanks for bringing the point about public sector utilities as well. So moving on, I'll move to Puneet. So moving from discoms to markets. So a couple of things if you can focus on. One is how discoms are using markets right now to deal with short-term power procurement, and then how can they use it more effectively, and what are the regulatory barriers that you see, policy and regulatory barriers. And one other thing that I would like to focus, since you also have modeling background, is the data, because forecasting is an important point. So both the data and the models that we have, its sophistication, its accuracy, etc. If you can comment, that would be good.
Thanks so much, and thanks so much for bringing out that second point. Because
The mic is not.
Just long press.
Long press.
That's
So thank you for bringing out that second point, because I'm more comfortable dealing with that. So first question I'll actually take on from what Adarsh was mentioning. Understanding the difference between reliability and resilience. This is very critical. And we often hear in Delhi, like for example today's newspaper, last 20 years or so, Delhi is 2.8 degree hotter, right? Now that means that, okay, did we have a higher temperature 20 years back? Or maybe, so these cycles repeat. If we are not even considering historical data in planning, that means that we are not even, while planning, we are not even planning reliable systems, let alone resilience. Resilience, as Adarsh was mentioning, is a low probability, high impact event. Now, that needs to be consciously brought in. And this is currently missing in any kind of expansion planning models that we have, and be it Plexos, be it Stellar, or be it anything else. This is missing everywhere, right? And then the second aspect on modeling, as you mentioned, the correlation between various uncertain factors, that is demand, solar generation, etc., etc. So when you kind of combine all this, if you have heat, you would probably have, obviously subject to limits, certain amount of solar generation also associated with it. So when we are planning systems, so normally what happens is that you look at all the models. So though Stellar that we developed for CA MOP, that allows for correlation between multiple uncertain factors. Now I saw the latest report coming out of CA. What they are using is, they are using simple Monte Carlo simulation. So that means that you have a separate distribution for demand, separate distribution for solar. You randomly pick up one number from here, randomly pick up one number from here, marry the two and create a scenario. Now the thing is that, okay, have you seen whether this demand and what is the probability of co-occurrence of this demand with this solar generation? You have not considered. So similarly, all these factors need to be brought into the modeling, so as to be able to model systems which while they take care of resilience, they also kind of take care of the correlation between various uncertain factors. And the very fact that we say that, okay, renewable energy is best balanced through large area balancing. So large area balancing means what? That in planning, solar here could be correlated in some sense or not correlated with solar or wind somewhere else. Now that you bring that in, and then probably it will lead to a better kind of a solution. So this feature is there in Stellar, but while modeling, probably the modelers were not very kind of comfortable understanding this and then modeling it. So I think first level on planning side is that, okay, you consider all these things and then you go in for it. Second thing on the modeling side, forecasting is very critical, definitely.
But forecasting, whatever you may do, will take you only this far. Every night, others will have to definitely sit and say that, okay, why did we not procure more or less than what we actually did? This is going to happen. And so, the strategy that is required there is to be able to model and incorporate that uncertainty in scheduling activities. Now, how do we do that? Currently, I don't know how, but this comes to the regulatory points. You have a market clearing engine which is run by the three exchanges, and on top of that, there is some security constraint unit commitment, security constraint economic dispatch that is done by the system operator. One, the two are not married. Two, it is called security constraint unit commitment, security constraint economic dispatch. Now, when I ask them that, okay, where are the security constraints? Let's forget reliability, forget resilience, that will come later. But where are the security constraints? So security constraints, what I was told was, and I've seen those models, is that, okay, your generators are not scheduled more than their capacities, are not scheduled more than lesser than their technical minimum, and there are some ATC flows, flow constraints. So that is what they mean by security constraint. Right. Now, the thing is that security constraints, first you need to bring n-1, n-2, n-1 g reliability into it. Forget resilience. First you need to get that in hand. Second, in system scheduling, in power system scheduling, now some of the ISOs in the US are transitioning from a deterministic SCUC and SCED to stochastic SCED and SCUC. That means that they are considering stochasticity while scheduling and while determining the LMPs, the locational marginal prices. Now, when I spoke about it in the Indian context with Indian policymakers, the questions that came were, okay, when you are considering stochastic scenarios, what does that mean? You are considering, say, 10 scenarios, 50 scenarios, and so on and so forth. Then which one of these do you take? Now that indicates a clear lack of understanding how stochastic models work. Stochastic model does not mean that I am taking, though I am considering 10, 15, 20 or whatever number of scenarios, but it does not mean that, okay, I'll land up with so many number of schedules and then I'll have to choose which one of those to implement. No, stochastic models don't work that way. So the way they work is that you come up with a schedule, but that schedule would be such that all the instances of uncertainty that you have considered would still remain feasible. They may not be optimal, but they'll still remain feasible. Right. So that means that entire thing needs to be modeled that way, and then there are ways of modeling unit commitment stuff, because you move from now, what I'm trying to work on is like, normally you have what is known as, I'm sorry, but there's a constraint, there's a conditional value at risk, say CVAR. But beyond CVAR, when you consider resilience, you move to what is known as entropic value at risk. So it makes it further conservative, right? So you plan.
Puneet, sorry to interrupt. We are in that modeling part. You've already used your technical terms.
Okay, sure.
But the other two things, it would be good if you can focus on. One is the the data that is going into this model, and not only from the power systems but also from IMD, because that is one thing. And second, very briefly on markets.
Okay, sure.
It would be good. Yeah.
Sure. So the data, IMD data that goes into it is clearly we have seen. That needs to be kind of improved a lot. So
you can be more honest.
So normally what I have seen is that the models that work is that when we are modeling, we are taking these weather variables, we take them from a variety of websites or variety of sources. Some European forecasters do a great job of this. So what is done is we take all those, and again, sorry to use some terms here, there is something called the model confidence set, MCS. So what it does is that you take all these data, build your forecasts, but as you are doing it daily, because it is not an academic exercise that okay, I have a I have a training data set and a test data set, and I kind of massage my model till I get a very good results on my test, because I have the ability, because I can practically see the test thing. But if I am sitting today, I have to forecast tomorrow, I don't see my test. It will reveal itself tomorrow. So when that happens, then model confidence set, it's a very powerful statistical technique. What it does is, historically you run an ensemble of models, they are running, and every day they put a weight on the performance of all the models, and this is statistically generated from the forecast. And then for tomorrow it tells you that okay, don't pick up one single model, you weigh these and then you come up with a number. So this is on forecasts and IMD, and how do you take care of that through both a combination of multiple data sources and the use of those through modeling. So this was on that part. And the markets definitely, see, the thing is that how are the states procuring their electricity for tomorrow? So some of the advanced discoms like the BSES and the Tata Power, they would be using sophisticated say a combination of portfolio optimization kind of tools, which are a combination of say they have some unit commitment constraints built into them, and some information about the prices that are likely to be come up in the markets, like the day ahead and the real-time markets. How they can use it more effectively, in my opinion, and we recently completed one project. We means not as IH, but in my previous avatar, in my previous firm, we were working for Ministry of Power. There said that when the states procure electricity on a day-ahead basis, I asked several utilities a question that do you feel that after the real time happens, do you feel काश मैंने डे हेड में खरीद लिया होता या काश मैंने रियल टाइम में खरीदा होता, राइट? इज दिस अ क्वेश्चन इन योर माइंड और नॉट? इफ दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन इन योर माइंड एंड यू आर नॉट टेकिंग केयर ऑफ इट इन योर डे हेड planning, when you are putting your bids on the exchange on a day-ahead basis, that means that there is a difference between the way you are thinking and the way you are modeling. And how do you bridge the gap? That means that when you decide your procurement on a day-ahead basis, subject to consideration of volume risk, because in the exchange, when prices touch rupees 10, then the capacities are or then the demand is prorated, and then you run the risk of not being able to get the demand from the market. Subject to that risk, you must be able to statistically divide your requirements from the market between the day and the real time, such that your value at risk, conditional value at risk, is minimized, right? So that is something which the states need to do, and that model has been developed, It has been tested in MSc DCL, and this will hopefully be kind of opened up for free for use by all the discoms in India by chairman of CA.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Now I'll move on to Naresh. So Energrid and IndiGrid have been putting up a lot of storage projects. So very quickly, what do you see? Is there any impact of extreme heat on, again, operational life of storage, the projects that you're putting up, one? And second is also the role of storage itself in order to meet the evening peak demand. So markets, storage, and the demand response, those are the three things that will come to. So then
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, couple of things before I go into the storage part, Aditya, if I want to add something to this discussion.
As long as it is 5 to 7 minutes.
Within that.
Yeah.
Before
Total,
7 minutes it will be closed. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. So, to be very practical and to keep it very simple, I think a couple of things which I would like to add. One is on the system design part, right? So generally we design, means generally I am using the word, not specific about anything, at 50 degrees Celsius plus 1 degree Celsius generally. And the ratings of the equipments and all the system components are selected based on this criteria generally. So the developer, the operator, the off-taker knows how much of quantum from which project at which location is going to get available. And also we are very we should be very proud that having such a large infrastructure, large grid, we are at we have a synchronous grid and operating at 50 Hz. Okay, so that is one part on the system design and the temperature part. Second, on the different aspects I could hear from the industry colleagues on the variance of the data. Again, to keep it very simple, the data available at present is from the satellite sources having long 10 kilometer or more that of resolution from 10 kilometer to 10 kilometer range. There are few data sources having 250 meter by 250 meter range also. Okay, not to mention anything specific, but for a particular location, right? The data is available, but that data we have to buy. Huge amount we have to pay, and while evaluating any good opportunity, we definitely go for that data and we get the annual 8760 values, hourly ambient temperature values, humidity values, we get those values and many more values, and then we divide it into 15-minute data also, so that the forecasting, scheduling, all the system design can become more optimum and we will be closer to what has to be delivered. So that is on the data selection part, which I wanted to add, to be very specific on whatever one of the agencies, government agencies in India. I don't want to name IMD or else, please don't consider any agency name, to be very honest. But there are some ground stations and there are many, but the accuracy of that data, the maintenance of the weather monitoring stations, that is one of the challenge. If that can be sorted out, I think we will have more accurate forecasted weather data. That is one part. Now coming to the storage part and how it helps. So just to give in brief, at present we are working in 22 states in India, and transmission line, 10,000 circuit kilometers of transmission line we are operating at present, and 1.5 gigawatt peak of solar portfolio and 2.5 gigawatt hour of battery energy storage under construction. Again, coming back to Aditya, your question on how it correlates and how we correlate. So just for the information of all the colleagues, industry colleagues over here, is our basis of any evaluation starts with a particular site assessment, and in that site assessment This average annual ambient temperature data is the first criteria we look at it. And from there, we start our site assessment journey, and then the system basic design, then the full complete design. How it helps? It helps in giving the clarity to my respected OEMs that for this particular project, every project is unique and special. This is the average annual ambient temperature hourly values. We give those values also to them. Based on that, we select a particular product, particular model, and the rating. And on a lighter note, we all know we have a reverse auction system here. There is a element criteria, right? So to win the project, to make it really workable for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, we have to go to that level. So that whatever selection we do at the time of bidding, and if we win the bid, any opportunity, and when we develop that asset, right, we are very clear from day one that this is the actually working conditions, operating conditions at site, and there the humidity and the temperature plays a big role. On the energy storage part, 80% of the asset management cost is coming from the auxiliary consumption, which is required in the thermal management system. So you can understand that a 0.5 degrees Celsius change in temperature is going to impact my electrons requirement, and per kWh, per month bill, I have to pay more, right? So that's why a detailed assessment is very, very important from the early stages of the project itself. And also the KPIs. The KPIs of the projects which we are working on are very stringent. For example, the round trip efficiency. Efficiency, I will use the word. Minimum we have to maintain 85%. The availability of the asset, for example, having 5 lakh of battery cells, we have to maintain 95% minimum annually. Auxiliary consumption, as I have mentioned, we have to maintain within the limit so that at least minimum expected return we will be able to meet. So all this plays a very important role. Now coming to how energy storage helps in the overall ecosystem. Actually, it helps in the time zone, the TOD. For example, in this afternoon time, we have an abundance of solar available. We charge the batteries, and during the peak hours, we can discharge it. Okay, thank you so much. Within 7 minutes, I have come. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I'll move to the demand response and demand flexibility part of it. And Pramod, AEEE has been working with different discoms. So two things. One is what are the options available, and the same thing about your experiences of working with discoms. How do they perceive demand flexibility as an option?
Thanks, Aditya, Shweta, Prayas team, and NRDC, not just for having me, but also for putting spotlight on this topic, because generally when we talk about resilience, power sector planning, matters related to what can be done from the demand side, from efficiency side, takes a backseat. And thanks to Mr. Jha for sharing stories of Odisha, your experience. I was born and brought up in Odisha, and in the mid-90s I've experienced 45 degree plus. That was business as usual. 16 hours power outage every day was business as usual. 100% power outage during the evening night time was business as usual. And you add water related issues, availability issues. We used to get like water once every 3 or 4 days. So I've sort of grown in that kind of a scarcity situation, and that's why I'm fortunate that at AEEE we talk about conservation and efficiency first. And although I may sound like a broken record, we say that we don't have to worry about generation, transmission, distribution, storage, reliability, resilience for that portion of demand which can be reduced through efficiency. or which can be flexed through demand response. So that's the opening speech, Aditya. Sorry, deviating from those two questions. Now, what we are doing in this space, currently AEEE is working with All India Discom Association, IDA, and through them we are working with 7 discoms spread across 6 states to try and again mainstream demand response. Because what has happened in the last 15-20 years, thanks to Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the acknowledgement for energy efficiency has grown. People know that, okay, one has to need efficient appliances. That part is understood. Second, also that time of day tariffs can help in demand shifting, although we can have a separate conversation how effective those tariffs are, how scientifically they are set up, whether it is leading to any demand elasticity, etc. or not. It's a separate topic, but those are the 2 things utilities have largely understood. I think this concept of flexible demand is something which we are seeing still many utilities are coming up to speed on that. So our first thing was, how do we start generating interest among discoms? And IDA today has more than 55 discoms as members. 7 discoms came forward and said, we want to explore this subject of flexibility. And then we started with our usual drill of doing the demand, analysis, what kind of opportunities exist, how do you convert them into demand response programs and then demand response projects in a portfolio manner. And these were set of discoms where the first generation of demand side management regulations existed, but some of these discoms also have the latest generation of flexibility regulations. So when we talk about Maharashtra, Karnataka, very recently Rajasthan, now they're talking about this demand flexibility regulations. But otherwise, they were from those, older generation DSM states, and wherever they felt that no, the current regulations, the 2010 model regulations based, are insufficient, then of course we, and thanks to other partners, MPN system, who are involved in this new demand flexibility regulation, we said, okay, we can also work on the regulation, but that's not a deal breaker. The existing regulations are also, sufficient enough for you to start taking action. So we are working in that direction, doing the analysis. Just if I take example of Bihar and Patna, Patna has a peak demand of 1000 megawatt plus, and through such flexibility initiatives, one can reduce almost 10% or manage 10% effectively. If I talk about the global benchmarks also, looking at some of the advanced countries, through flexibility, through demand response, one can manage 5% of the peak demand in a cost-effective manner. If we do a similar assessment for India, I'm sure we'll end up, reaching that number. The Maharashtra regulation also talks about a ramping, trajectory, which reaches 3% of the peak demand, I think, in the last year, 4 years from now. So that's the other one part. The second part, we realized that a lot of enabling framework needs to be put into place. So when you talk to DISCOM and when you talk to India, anyone in general, everyone will say that, okay, opportunities are mouth-watering, but challenges are eye-watering. So in case of DISCOMs also, you will hear, no, data nahi hai, wo nahi hai, hum kaise karenge, hame kaam de diya. We said, okay, we'll come up with a third-party model. Everyone has heard about ESCOs, RESCOs. Now when it comes to flexibility, we are saying FLESCOs. Okay, so you have not heard, so that's my term, FLESCOs. You can work on flexos, and they will come in, they will take care of investment, they will take care of, everything. But all you have to make sure that you are, entering into a proper contract and the sanctity of that contract is ensured. You can structure it in the form of a success fee model that you don't have to, invest on your own. You do a monitoring verification of savings and come up with an arrangement how to allocate that savings for the service provider, provided you are giving a long-term visibility. You can't be entering into an annual contract. So that's the second piece of our work, how to enable a market for aggregators and the entire process of hiring, onboarding, commercial arrangement of aggregators. It's something. If you see and if you look at some of these players, UEI, the alliance, had so many players already who are waiting for the market to start, taking such actions and giving such signals. We did a survey and we found that there are more than 20 aggregators who are working in some capacity, pilots, etc. But now it has to be brought to scale. The third part, what we are doing is after all of these steps, assessments, monitoring, verification, aggregator, how do we bring all of them together into a platform which is operationally manageable and which brings efficiency? So while the IES discussion is going on, a lot of developments, this is something RMI, AEEE working together to create a demand flexibility platform. Now, what are the learnings or things that we are hearing? First of all, our discussion with DISCOM started a year back, but we don't see alacrity yet. So where is that alacrity and where is that true recognition of demand as a resource? We still feel no, it's still very much on the periphery, not becoming mainstream. So unless it becomes part of your resource adequacy planning, multi-year planning, it will still be treated as a project, not as a cost-effective resource. The second part, which I mentioned earlier also, I'm repeating, I think when it comes to efficiency and demand shifting through TOD, that understanding is there. But flexibility as a resource, I think that is the part we need to work on. Dynamic pricing. So when we talk about TOD, many states, as we know, are working on a static pricing. So unless you make it dynamic, the flexibility cannot be enabled. So that's the second part. The third part, and I see some blame on community and on organizations like us. I don't think we have done a good job in communicating how demand response can be made as a resource. So when we talk about some of these regulations also, it's talking about a different cost effectiveness, calculation, analysis. Why are we not bringing demand response flexibility in the same unit as we treat supply side resource? When we talk about supply, we talk about fixed cost, dollar per megawatt per year, LCOE, dollar per kWh, short run marginal cost or variable cost, again dollar per kWh. But when we talk about demand flexibility, we start talking in altogether different units. Payback period, TRC cost, RIM cost, PRC cost, PCT cost. We are not bringing demand resource in the same currency, in the same unit, where a DISCOM or power planners can start doing an apple-to-apple comparison. So that's another learning which we should try and bring it. The last line from my side is, if we make it easier for our stakeholders and individuals to take the right action, they are most likely end up doing the right action. So the ball is in our court. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. What I'll do is, we have officially 15 minutes, but we started 10 minutes late, we'll end 10 minutes later. I know we can hear plates and spoons, but we'll bear it. So what we'll do is, we moved from DISCOMs to markets, to battery and to demand response. Now we'll take a step back again and then move to Soumya from WRI, because you have been working on extreme heats and its impact on both transmission as well as distribution infrastructure. So we'll love to hear your thoughts, your reflections on the same. In again 5.
Yeah.
Now 5 minutes. Now.
I'll be very brief. One of the things, so again, I'm Soumya from WRI India. I work on transmission planning and grid resilience. And one of the things that we've seen in planning, especially for transmission, and I think many of the speakers have alluded to this as well, is that you see the impacts of heat only from how it impacts demand. And while we know that there's impact of heat on the actual infrastructure of transmission, that is never taken into account. So if you look at the CTUIL plans, for example, yes, you're doing load flow studies for future demand periods. You look at scenarios with high heat, high demand, and of course you do contingency analysis, so N-1, to see what kind of redundancy needs to be built in the system. But you will never see an understanding of what happens if my demand goes up when I hit 50 degrees, but what happens to my infrastructure. which is catering to that same demand. And I think the reason for that is that as we plan our transmission today, we are basically relying on these codes. So the idea is that, at least in the ISTS segment, I designed for at least a 45-degree ambient temperature. I designed for N-1, and then there's enough redundancy in the system that my lines are never really critically loaded. So in this scenario, if these characteristics hold, it's mostly 45 degrees that the temperature will hit at consistently and go slightly higher for say an hour or 2 hours. If I have N-1 and my lines are lightly loaded, then if there is an increase in demand, there is enough headroom to meet that. If there is a sudden spike in temperature, there's enough headroom to meet that. Where the problem occurs is where these conditions do not hold, which is the case for many state systems which are not built for N-1, which have lines which are overloaded and are in areas experiencing extreme heat waves. This is also a problem for, of course, the ISTS system in certain corridors which are overloaded, and in those corridors you see these problems happening more frequently. However, heat is very different from a cyclone or a landslide. It doesn't operate in the same way. It's far more insidious. The way it builds, it sort of builds up its impact in the infrastructure. So, for example, one particular heat wave event won't see your distribution, your transmission substation collapse, but you will see that build up, and then you will have that one stress event, and you see a failure happen. And I think that makes it difficult to track. But I also liked Adarsh's point that it is also very difficult to go to the regulator right now to talk about resilient infrastructure, and I think that also makes attribution to heat an issue, and that of course needs to change. My last sort of final point is, I think it is true that we tend to deal with heat as a crisis situation, and we need to move towards thinking about resilience. I also think that as we move towards thinking about resilience, it's also important to remember that it comes with a cost, and that we need to be smart about how we do it. And of course, bringing in the regulator in that regard is really important. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks. So, Shalu, you have been working, so CEW works on both power sector and extreme heat as a broader issue. So if you can comment on, you have heard everyone else, and if you can comment on that and tie it up to the work that you are doing in 5 minutes.
My name is Shalu Agrawal. I work with Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And as Aditya pointed out, we have a team that dedicatedly is working on climate resilience and heat in particular. And I would like to cite some numbers from one of their recent studies, which will put some of the heat issues in perspective. We did an assessment for all the districts of the country to see which districts are more impacted by heat, and we find that 60% of Indian districts are at high or very high risk of heat. And in the last decade, as compared to the decades before, we note that warm nights in particular have risen much faster than daytime temperatures rising. And almost 70% of districts have observed 5 additional warm nights during the summers. And these are more concentrated during in the denser urban areas. For instance, Mumbai has noted 15 additional warm nights per summer last decade as compared to many other regions. The other thing that they noted is relative humidity is going up very fast, and more so in the northern region. And that means both of them combined means, and they are also a reflection of the urban heat island effect that of course people talk about. But from energy point of view, it means that people are forced to go towards air conditioning to get the relief from humidity, but also because of the warm nights, because and this also then translates onto the infrastructure, that your transformers or infrastructure, they are getting more loaded during the night times, and they're not getting time to cool down during the night times. I think we heard some of it, but these numbers and the projections are these numbers will only grow, and the intensity of stress is only growing, and therefore the conversation and planning for resilience becomes important. And then what our power team tried to do, we looked at that data, and then we looked at the merit data for the Delhi discoms, and then we see that the peak demand for Delhi correlates very strongly with the nighttime minimum temperature, much more than the daytime highs. And so far, much of the planning focuses on either average annual ambient temperatures or daytime temperatures, because we believe that will drive demand. I'm assuming even peer modeling would have that kind of basis, right? So our planning actually needs to, if the warm nights are growing and there's no respite for human beings and the infrastructure to cool down from them, I think that variable also needs to enter planning and must determine how we are seeing the peak demand grow, especially in regions where the overall peak occurs during the night times as well. UP, for instance, right? And how will demand flexibility come to rescue there is a big question. So I'll come to that later. Because you have to first think about how would you meet that demand, because it's an existential demand, especially during heat stress. So that is one. I think forecasting based on nighttime temperature will be one point that we could consider. The other bit, markets, and Puneet spoke about it. I think one of the ways that our team is trying to solve for it is how do we bring a new market mechanism that can make clean power more available in the markets during, say, peak hours. And we've been working very closely with SECI and MNRE for the last 2 years, and they've finally will be doing a pilot on contract for differences, and it's structured to bring clean power using REN storage during peak solar hours. It may work, it may not work, but I think those are the kind of market instruments that we need so that, especially during when the system will be stressed, how do you make power available? We can't be relying on, again, base load plants and coal power plants, which will be very costly otherwise. But the same approach can be applied to the distribution side as well. Like as consumers, we are, of course, promoting rooftop solar, but that may add to the problem because there will be no power when most stress comes onto the system. So how do we incentivize consumers to generate and self-consume power so that the load on the network comes down and we are not constantly thinking about upgrading the transformers, increasing their sizes, and the space, where will it come from, where that will come from. And the final bit, from my own experience of, working with smart meter data of consumers in Bareilly and Mathura, and we noted there, and we had covered certain neighborhoods that during summers, peak summers, when the demand was very high, voltages in households would go down to even 180 volts. 180 volts, right? And they will stay very low. We didn't measure, what was happening with the transformers. I'm sure they were extremely stressed, and that's how failures happen. Now you're looking at a situation where one stress, like 2024 saw almost 14% growth of AC sales, right? Because one heat wave forces the consumers to, because they have to survive, right? So India is going to see a lot of cooling purchases of both new and actually old. Recircularity is another problem. Old AC is going into the low-income households. Now they together will force the demand. We are not increasing our sanctioned loads. So that visibility is also missing from the DISCOMs to plan their network. And that combined with, say, rooftop that may enter that region without battery is the problem that we will have to solve for. There are not easy answers, but visibility, and I think what we're doing in putting smart meters on the DTs and the consumers, I think that'll be the first step for us to, one, know where will the stresses come from, and if we could overlay that network and the demand data with, say, the climate data of the kind, say, we are building an atlas for, I think that will help us start going in the right direction. So I'll pause there.
Okay, good, thanks. So it's 1:15. What I'll do is that, maybe 10 minutes or so, or even less. If there are one or two questions. Okay, yeah, sorry. So MPN Systems is also there, and they have been working with AEEE on demand response. So very quickly, before we open up to questions, if you can talk about your experience, that would be great.
So, okay. So, just briefly wanted to talk about some sort of demand side measures which usually we are working with discoms to actually implement. So, we discussed about peak demand, that peak demand is increasing. But I think the most important question is when that peak demand will be coming and from how much point it will be coming. So how much ramping will be required. So basically to understand the overall demand and contribution of different loads within that peak demand is very important. And for that we are actually trying to help discoms, that we are working with discoms that how to measure that cooling demand or appliance level demand from the overall load curve. So basically it can be done through sampling by measuring appliance level metering, and also there are a lot of model available in market. There are a lot of startups who are doing it, that they are disaggregating the loads from the overall load curve. And why this is helpful is basically you are seeing the transformer failures as well as you are seeing the peak demand increase. But to manage it on a distribution level, you need a appliance level monitoring, and you need to understand how much cooling load is actually contributing into the overall load. So that's why we are also like purchasing few appliance level meter and helping to create a sample data sets which can help to disaggregate the appliance level demand from the overall load curve, and which is eventually helping the demand flexibility as well as demand response programs. And yeah, so that's the main thing which I wanted to discuss. And I think we haven't touched upon centralized cooling and the solutions for that, because it will eventually reduce a lot of cooling demand drastically in terms of commercial and industrial demand. And also the thermal energy solution, like except from the normal energy storage solutions, you also have a thermal energy solution which discom can basically introduce, and helping it the demand side management of it. So yeah, that's
Thanks for bringing out that point. So any quick questions question? Okay, yeah. Very quick.
I'm KK Raj, the energy consultant. I think I missed one point, your resilience to extreme heat. How about this thing, making, as we have charter for renewable energy to surpass conventional energy generation by conventional sources, then how about going for this thing, renewable energy in hybrid forms to tackle varying demands and all? And in that case, what about smart grid management? Those issues are also to be discussed.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
tackle the future needs, emerging needs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So any more questions / comments, so we can take them together if anyone wants to. One.
I have one question from the solution side. So we were exploring grid interactive buildings in respect to demand flexibility. So I wanted to understand, because we have a large group of experts here, what is the sense and what is the feasibility of it in the Indian ecosystem at present? So I would like to understand, that aspect.
You are from which institute? Okay.
A lot of times, other than the base requirement that the discoms have of having some percentages renewable energy to be distributed among the users, the renewable energy industry and the regular discoms that we have currently, which are not using that, are at each other's throats. Essentially because a lot of times in some states that have enough energy to provide, which are energy rich states, the budget books don't look good the more renewable energy come into play. So they do not want to, and this is what they would say, some discoms, that we don't want to save, we want to sell. So how do we address that lack of interest in increasing the renewable energy by the discoms?
Okay. Any more?
Personally understand from the theme of the session, if I break it into two parts, one is what is the current set of resilience practices which is there. That is something which we as a group need to understand. And as the old saying goes, prevention is better than cure. I think we have crossed that stage where lot of things have been talked about prevention, but we have now entered into a stage where cure is required. So from cure perspective, what I also wanted to understand from this August gathering and this experience group is, how do you think and what do you think would be the future of some, say, parametric solutions? Because going forward, if you talk about the financial resilience, there are already a structured solutions which is in place, but I think with the changing parameters which is coming with respect to the vagaries of the nature, I think a more structured parametric solution is something which would add to the financial resilience of the organizations.
Great.
Thank you.
One last point.
Yeah, I think just wanted to invite some thoughts around how the group is looking at, say, EV charging companies. For example, learning from at least first pilot in 2016 when we did, when I was earlier with Indra, what we experienced is when the temperature shots up to 50 degrees Celsius and so one, because of the voltage fluctuations, the EV charger becomes non-functional once every 40 days. So that reduces the reliability of it. Second, as the temperature rises, it takes more minutes to charge, it takes more time to charge. So any reflections is how are planning something?
Okay, thanks. So 5 different things. If anyone wants to take it up, that would be good. Grid interactive buildings, and then there was Discom, which I didn't, yeah, Discom interest in buying RE. One important point about the point about regulatory treatment of resilience and reliability was one, but this whole financial, how do you finance any infrastructure project, that is also an important part. And then there was charter for smart grid management, as well as how I did not understand the question correctly, but understood. So there was those. So anyone wants to take?
Yeah, grid interactive building is already going on. We already have a project, and we also are building a center of excellence that will be grid interactive. So that already exists. Do you want to break that word? It is a version of home energy or a building energy management system. It's just a fancy word. But in this case, we also want to probably provide frequency support as a building. So there is already funding opportunity that we proposed, MNRE proposed. It is already activity going on. So it's not like we don't know something about it. It's just we need to give some fruition time on it. The topic on, remember the second one?
There are multiple, if you want to.
The second topic, the topic of RE generation being sold versus saved was a question, right?
So
Correct.
Discoms are reluctant.
Exactly. See, there are two theories on earth. There is no way one will agree on both. Okay, I have been in this for last 17 years. So either there's a school of thoughts who believe you just generate the cheap energy, sell it, or spill it. Or you take that energy, save it in an expensive resource like storage, and use it. There are two theories. I think the mix is something in between. Neither argument will ever win. So, whereas in today, inside state, in Delhi, for example, because of the line constraints we have, the state is forcing us, in the sense the situation is forcing us to put more storage. Right? Situation decides one or the other, whereas some states where there is a good interstate transmission or intrastate, they can just sell it. So situation will decide what is good, economically what's viable. In the end, economics win that argument. Okay, the other question was resilience, reliability, regulator, we spoke about it. It is a challenge. And other thing is, even when an asset fails, we don't even have a requirement to identify why the asset failed. Right? It failed. It just failed. We call it breakdown, a very beautiful word. Around the world, not just India, we don't even say it failed because of a storm or a heat wave or there's not even a register. So whatever we say why something failed, we have no idea why something failed. It could be a poor manufacturing, it could be pure installation. We don't know. So resilience needs to be fixed from bottom up. Unless we consider it as a bottom up solution, all will be surface level and there will be challenges coming up again and again. For example, in US, FEMA invests billions of dollars, right? And when FEMA goes and says fix a transformer, this happened in real time in Puerto Rico or Virgin Islands, they just put the whole assets they have to be fixed on the list. It has happened every time. And I've been on the committee multiple times. I ask, how do you even know this failed? On the day. There is no record that even tracks. This is a real problem that happens around the world, not just India. So this is a serious problem. We got to figure it out from regulatory side.
Thanks. Naresh, did you have something?
If we think properly, India has already maybe 50,000, 1 lakh plus grid interactive buildings. All the buildings that are getting this IGBC rating, LEED rating, GRIA rating, they have BMS in place. That's one of the important sort of technologies to make a building grid interactive. They might not be having thermal storage, but yeah. So what is missing right now is what's the incentive for those customers, except for the static TOD in place, to use that feature. Okay. And some of these buildings, even if they try and work on reducing their fixed demand, how quickly DISCOMs are helping them to reduce their sanction load. So that's one piece. I think the other thing I wanted to draw parallel with the energy storage, battery storage industry. 10 years back when I started working on this, the main arguments for energy storage was it can help you in energy arbitrage. All sort of benefit streams were linked to energy related, nothing related to capacity, nothing related to what can help you reduce the fixed cost. I think in case of demand response also, we'll end up in a situation, these 7 states and regulators that we're talking about, everyone is saying, okay, how it can help you to reduce marginal expensive power or APPC, all of those things. Nobody is talking about if you bring it at scale, if you bring certainty in reduction, then how it can help in capex difference, okay? And that kind of a capacity benefit, which in my view will constitute 75% of the total benefit stream. Only 25% will come from energy. And people are focusing more on energy. So to answer your question, grid interactive buildings, all these 50,000 assets will come online quickly as soon as we start recognizing the capacity benefits. Thanks.
First is on the smart grid stuff and distributed resources. That actually relates to one of the points that you had in your presentation about system operation. Now, see what we are attempting to do both in planning and in system operation. System operation, you would have heard about a concept called embed that came in say 2018, where they said that okay, they'll kind of optimize everything in one go. Now this happens both in planning, while planning, and in operation. Now there is this concept of distributed optimization, because see, at the end of the day, the discoms, the SLDCs often complain that they don't have visibility solar on rooftops solar. Case in point being Kerala, for example, 1.5 gigs of solar rooftop, average demand 4 gigs. So how do you manage with poor visibility? So you need to have distributed kind of I mean, not a hierarchical way of system operation, but a more collaborative way of system operation. So that functionally changes the way system operation currently works in India. The other point was on that point of battery, the value of battery. So value of storage has been recognized in the resource adequacy work that has been done for CA by us, by probably CA themselves. So, and this I have been listing on record since 2020, that 5 benefits, and they are all computed, quantified, not just concept. First, obviously, we all know energy arbitrage. Second, all kinds of ancillary services. All kinds means all kinds, starting from your inertia to PRAS to SRAS to tertiary. All kinds of ancillary services. Second. Third, transmission deferral and capacity deferral in general. All that has been quantified through detailed system level modeling for various states in India. Normally what happens is that they used to model battery by considering state as a single node, and then they would say that okay, by 2030 this state needs 5,000 megawatts of battery. Then the question that I have asked CA many times is that where in the state? Because the moment you consider the intrastate transmission network, only then you can say that okay, where are you going to get it. The third one is balancing. Now balancing is actually confused with ancillary service. It is not. The two are different. So balancing revenue could be a revenue stream for these one. Fifth one is actually about these which has been started kind of recently by NTPC. They have started this. Now whenever we are doing an expansion planning or a resource adequacy model, we are actually required to select quote unquote candidate locations for battery. How do we select those candidate locations? Is that the places where demand is high, the place where network is getting congested in the base case, so you select this side or this side. The third thing is the generator itself, the coal-fired generator itself. Obviously, we know that okay, you can put a battery with RE, but battery with those guys. Now, these are the 5 kind of potential revenue streams for battery. Now, the last point here, and I'll draw from the last point that I just mentioned. When you place it with a coal-fired plant, the question that I asked, and that kind of relates with the question that was asked there, that why are some states who are RE rich, they're not interested in investing more? Because of the fact that as a policy we are not treating flexibilization investment as green investment. So when I invest to flexibilize my coal-fired plant, either by reducing its technical minimum or by kind of changing its minimum uptime and downtime, or by putting up a BESS along with a thermal plant. I don't consider that as green investment. Why? The thing is that you have a history, you have created an asset which is relatively inflexible, and
I'm sorry. Yeah. So the people are leaving. So, but I think this has been a very good session. I won't summarize it. In fact, I've been asked to summarize this in a session in the evening. So that's a plug-in for it. Please do attend that. But thank you for attending this. Do you have any closing final comments, or we do really have to close, so we can take it over the lunch. I'm really sorry.
I will not keep anyone away from lunch. Just to say that I haven't ever learned so much in 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes than I have learned in this session. It's truly eye-opening. The richness, I was just estimating roughly the speakers that have spoken, minimum of 300 years of collective wisdom that you have shared in this session. So to me, it's enlightening, and I hope some of the others also felt it was useful to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.